I'd like to call the budget session of the O'Fallon City Council of October 16th to order. Roll call, please, Pam.
Councilman Lucas?
Present.
Let's see, Councilman Schwenker?
Present.
Councilman Pepper?
Here.
Councilwoman Mack?
She's excused.
Councilman Feeney?
Mark him in attendance when he arrives.
Councilwoman Cook?
Present.
Councilman Hammond?
Present.
Councilman Howell?
Present.
Councilman Hinman?
Present.
Councilman Battelle?
Present.
And Mayor Hennessy.
Present. Folks, you have an agenda in front of you. What's the pleasure?
Motion for approval, Swanker. Second, Hinman.
Second, Pepper.
Motion by Councilman Schwenker, second by Councilman Hinman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Bonnie.
Good evening, everyone. We will have cardinal updates every once in a great while for you. You have on your dais this evening the answers to questions from Monday night. We will keep giving those to you ahead of time so that you can use that for your deliberations. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Steve and Jim. Environmental Services.
Okay, we're on tab number 19, Environmental Services. With this fund, the revenues are up slightly for calculating for all new homes coming into the city. We're anticipating 400 new homes coming into the city next year. Also factored into the revenues is the new recycling numbers that was approved by council a month or two ago. That effect is actually a reduction of $100,000 in that fund. In total, the revenue in the fund is $4.5 million. It's nearly the same as it was in 2014. With the rates, there's no changes with our rates. Basic service is still $11.48, with yard waste being an additional $7.50 extra. Our expenditures are down by about $240,000 this year from the prior year. It's about 5%. Bond payments are $76,000 every year, which amounts to 1.6% of the revenue. And expenditures total $4.3 million. The notable capital items is a $100,000 transfer into the CLIP program. That's the fourth year this is occurring. And then 2 side load trucks at a cost of $376,000. And then the new sanitation carts at $126,000. And that of that, 800 new carts are for the new homes, and the remainder is for the replacing old carts. Looking at the operating fund, it's pretty consistent with last year. Major change that you'll note is contract services going down $50,000, and that's because we had in there the storm debris removal budgeted this year, and that was not used. And overall, the operating budget is a 1% increase, which is less than the payroll change. It's about $36,000 total.
Questions on environmental services? Mr. Pepper.
Two things. First of all, on these 2 trucks, are they going to be ambidextrous?
They are.
Either side?
Oh, no, not either side. Any waste stream, though.
No, I'm talking about being able to. I'm still thinking about having to go the wrong way on one-way streets.
No is, I guess, the answer. To put the arm on both sides, we don't have that option available. You could put a cart tipper on one side and an arm on the other, but you couldn't put 2 arms on.
Okay. Okay, that, and then in your overtime budget, how is the 10-hour schedule working, and is that, is this overtime here based upon using a 10-hour holiday schedule type of thing, or is it, I would hope that your overtime would be supposedly lower this year. At least that's what we were led to believe last year, somewhat lower.
And it is lower. We're quite a ways under budget right now. We do have some holidays coming up, but overtime is kind of hard to predict because of the option that the employees have to take it as comp time or to take it as overtime. So it's kind of hard to say what it's going to be until they decide what they're going to take. But I anticipate being under budget on overtime this year.
Okay, but you're still asking for the same amount as last year.
Just because there's no way to know what they're going to take. I mean, we can make it anything that we want, but you just don't know until they decide.
So you're going to, this year, you're going to give that money back so Vicky can put it somewhere else, right?
Well, it's going to go to pay the debt.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I needed.
Thank you. Mr. Hammond?
Real quick, with these trucks we're getting are all replacement trucks. We're not adding any trucks to the
That's
fleet.
correct.
With the new homes projected into the city, how far down, how many years online do you see before we need to add another truck to continue service the way we have it?
You know, I don't see that still in my 5-year plan.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Any more questions for Environmental Services? Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for waiting around, Jim.
It was a long wait.
The next tab is tab 20. It's the Sewer Lateral Insurance Fund. With this, the rates were set by the council recently, and they remain unchanged from last year to this year. We did have a slow summer, or it was slow coming into summer, but August and September were record months where we had 9 and 10 each month come in for repairs. Normally, we average 30 in an entire year, so having that many come in 2 months was quite a bit. So some of those numbers don't show up because they need to be recorded. But there's not much to this fund other than the expenses for the repairs.
Mr. Lucas?
Steve, I know when we first instituted this, we sent the little brochures out to all the residents to let them know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that? Was it 4? Is it 4 years now, or 3, 5?
2000, was it 2009 that this started off?
Yeah. So it's 5 years ago. I don't know what the cost on that, but that's, in my opinion, it may be something
Do a mailing.
we want to revisit again, get that back out to let the residents know that is out there, because we have added quite a few residents, and there's a lot out there that, you know, may have forgotten it's even available. Just a thought.
We'll see what that costs and bring it to you.
Okay.
Mr. Swanker?
And that's a good idea, Councilman Lucas, and we may be able to put that on the bill. We may be able to put that on the bill, you know, of the notice. And,
Trash bill?
no, the water.
Trash.
Yeah, it's all together. It has to be
all together.
It covers everybody.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Water Fund.
Water Fund, we wanted to do a quick presentation for you here tonight.
Thank you.
Is this the same one? Or did they change it?
Yeah.
Is this the same handout?
It is the same. I didn't know if you brought it back or not. I'm good.
Thank you.
So prior to the meeting, we had some questions on some of the capital projects in the Water and Sewer Fund. So we had made a commitment to give you a presentation on those 3 projects. So this presentation here will cover the Fruit Creek lift station force main upgrades, the sludge dewatering improvements, and replacing the odor control unit. Project number 1 is the Fruit Creek lift station force main upgrades. Currently, we receive about 1 million gallons a day from Public Water District number 2, which is coming from Lake St. Louis. During dry conditions, about 60% of that comes through the O'Fallon Hills neighborhood, and out of that comes odor issues. We have undersized lines. We have some problems there. And with the odor issues, the problems we had at Bryan Road and Pedrati Lane earlier this year, that was a direct result of that. And then about 40% of the flow comes straight to our Prue Creek lift station. So what they're planning to do is replace a line that runs under the lake in Lake St. Louis. When they do that, they are planning to shift how that flow comes to us, and we have a commitment from a contract that we would treat their sewage. In 2015, they're going to build this new main to take the flows out from under the lake and discharge it to us in the vicinity of our Prue Creek lift station. Initially, it was going to go straight to our Prue Creek lift station, and we started talking, negotiating with them on better ways to handle it, because that wasn't the best location for us. So earlier this year, the water and sewer staff had some meetings, looked at the initial designs, and then came up with a different option on how to handle this. If we were to do it at the Prue Creek lift station, we'd have to do an upgrade to that lift station, and that was all a brand-new lift station just a few years ago. We'd have to have another line and new equalization basin and a new force main. That cost for our system ended up being about $3.6 to $5 million, over $5 million. So like I said, we started negotiating with them to come up with a better way to handle this that would work better for them and for us. In the end, we found a place where they can bring the flows to that didn't have to go through our lift station, but it would still require some additional work on our part from that point into our system. So we'd be installing a new sewer main. But what this did for us, it reduced our cost. The estimate right now is $2.5 million. So it's more than $1 million less than what we had initially thought. It could have been several $1 million less than initial estimates. Then as a side benefit, we also don't have to have the energy of pumping those flows. The map here, this kind of shows what's going on here. So Lake St. Louis the lake is actually right here. So they're taking all these lines out from underneath the lake and then piping them around, go up over 70 there, and then you can't really see it. There's a yellow line to our Prue Creek lift station, which is generally in this area here. But instead, we're looking at this route here, and they would dump it off right about here. And a little blow up of that is this. So this area right here was by Hoff Road. They would discharge it here, and then we've got several options from here on how to get it to a suitable main, which is down here, past the Manderley Place subdivision here. So we have a couple options we're looking at there, and that's where the work of the $2.5 million comes from. Moving on to project number 2, the sludge dewatering improvements.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Questions on project 1?
Well, before we go that way, did we skip some sections within side of this thing to jump to that?
You know,
No.
Presentation.
We're doing a presentation first, then we'll do the budget. They're just giving us a presentation right now. Yeah.
Okay, you had me slightly confused, sir.
Not hard, huh?
I have a question.
Mr. Lucas.
The change where they're going to dump, our improvements are going to entail increasing the line we're going to use. We're going to increase the capacity or the size of that line then.
build a new line, right?
Okay, that eventually is going to flow into another lift station somewhere, right? Would that require any work on that lift station also? So
Yeah, that lift station was built robust enough to handle it.
So the line would be our only real work. The whatever lift station it eventually goes to would be able to handle whatever we throw into it at that time then?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hinman.
Thank you. You kept saying they're gonna build a line. Is that line then gonna become part of our inventory, or is somebody else gonna be taking care of that?
Everything that they build, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be their maintenance, and everything we
Right.
build is going to be our maintenance.
Basically, they're going to force it to a certain point, about where that red arrow is, right there. And then from that point to the north, as it goes west lift station, we'll maintain that portion.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions on project 1?
Yes, sir?
Go ahead, Mr. Pepper.
I've got a question as to why are we putting money into this to handle a problem they have? Well, I don't understand. I know DNR says we got to take it, but somewhere along the line, if they want to make it happen, they need to pay for it, not us, because it's coming back on our ratepayers.
Well, they're our customer too, so they get charged for the treatment of the flows. So we have a contract with them, and a few years ago, the attorneys and the courts looked at that contract and came back and said that we're obligated to treat all the flows.
We're obligated to treat all the flows. I've got no issues with that. That's DNR, and the whole bit came through with that. Am I correct? That was part of the whole thing, that we're forced to take it.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. So my question still arises is, they want increased flows, they want all this other stuff. Am I correct? They're going to force it?
No, it's the same flows. It'll actually be reduced flows because the purpose for their project is to get the line out from under the lake. So that removes inflow and infiltration of stormwater into their system. So in the end, it's going to be slightly reduced amounts of flows that we receive, but it's still the same flows.
I'm still having a problem as to why we're expending our ratepayers' money, generally speaking, for Lake St. Louis, PWSD. I would think that they would come across with the money, not us.
Well, Lake St. Louis is our customer. They are our customer.
They pay us for service.
How much in reference to our own ratepayers?
They pay the same rate as our ratepayers. The difference, though, is that all the stormwater that runs into their lines runs through the meter as well, so they get a bill for that as well, whereas that doesn't affect our customers. Our customers get billed based upon what comes through their drinking water meter, so stormwater doesn't get calculated.
I guess bottom line is, what's the return on investment for O'Fallon sewer on this project?
I mean, it's an expense that's required so we can continue to treat the flows that's coming to us.
Plus, it'll be less coming out of Peru lift station, correct? Because it goes into Peru now, right?
That is correct.
And
Yeah.
plus it'll eliminate the odor problems that happen down there every summer when it gets hot.
Yeah, we do have those benefits. So we do have some other issues in our system by the Bryan Road area that if this doesn't happen, we'd have to look at doing other improvements in our own system to deal with that. The odor issues are going to be better because of this, and the energy use will be less because of this too. So
2.5 million worth?
it's a lot of money.
I'm still having a major issue because I don't believe it's been adequately explained myself, but we'll go ahead and move on.
Mr. Lucas?
Jim, I kind of understand on the surface what you're saying, but it's kind of similar to us bringing in a new subdivision and we extending the service line, our service lines to take care of the subdivision. Eventually what we're getting and charging the residents cover the cost of us putting the line in out to service them. And that's kind of what this is. We're still going to continue to take their flows. Their bill is going to help cover the cost we're putting in this. Actually, we're going to upgrade a line that probably at some point in time we'd had to do anyway. So, I mean, it's part of the cost of doing business within this type of business. So,
Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. All right, so let's just boil this down very simply. Regardless of what we do, Lake St. Louis is building a new line to at least a Peru lift station.
Yes.
And if they do that, we're required to take it. And
Yes.
if we are required to take it, we cannot handle it. So then we need to spend about $5 million or so to upgrade our Peru lift station to make it happen. Now, bypassing the Peru lift station, we're down to $2.5 million because they're going to build a line regardless. So we just saved ourselves about $2.5 to $5 million, depending on what our estimates were.
Yes, sir.
So the water is coming our way regardless if it goes to Peru or on our plan. It's going to cost us a lot more if we take it to Peru and lift it out. We're required to take it. So no matter what we do, I'll go at $2.5 million. I'm good with that.
You did a very good job. I wish I had done it that well the first time.
Mr. Pepper?
Yeah, I agree with basic financials such as that. I can understand that. But again, that expense should be handled through maybe a surcharge till we get a cost recovery on an expense coming out of ours. Because it's not inside the city, it's external of the city.
Are their rates the same as our residents?
No, they charge their own rates to their residents.
What do we
but
charge to them?
Our rate to them is the same as our residents.
Okay, we charge, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but we charge sewer hookup, tap fees, et cetera, inside, outside, different prices, the whole bit. Why are we not doing it in this case here?
And, there was some agreements that covered the issues that you're talking about in the past, and maybe it's better if we get Kevin to write up a little summary or something like this.
Yeah, because I was going to say, that I think some of this has even gone to court at one point,
Yes.
and we lost, so.
I'm sorry, but saying that we have to take it is one thing, but at what price?
Yeah, well, I'll talk to Kevin tomorrow, because I think there was some wording even on that.
We fought this before.
Okay. Any other questions on Project 1? Project 2?
So Project 2 is at our biosolids facility. Two belt filter presses, what they do is they dewater the sludge so we could process it into the fertilizer. They've been in service since 2000. Replacing those biofilters would be $2 million apiece. They're due for a major overhaul, so the project is a $400,000 project to do a major overhaul on both of those filter presses. We were able to bring the Public Works Commission out here yesterday, and I know Mr. Feeney was with us for part of that too, but the filter presses look like the picture here, and like I said, they process the sludge so we can make the fertilizer.
That we can't sell?
And so basically, all we're doing is trying to take an old piece of equipment, which I guess 2000 might not sound too old, but when it operates as much as it does in a mechanical manner like that since 2000, it's been there a long time, and it's due for a major overhaul.
Questions on Project 2? Mr. Lucas?
You guys are comfortable that doing the major overhaul is going to keep that running for another 10 years?
I believe so.
Yeah, I haven't heard the estimate. Is it 10?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Feeney, do you have something?
Well, I just wondered why Mr. Pepper didn't show up last night. He was invited.
He's been razzing me about that all day.
Okay.
Can't stand smells.
Project 3?
So Project 3 is somewhat related to the other project, because one of the effects of the filter presses and the processing of the sludge is we get odors, and one of the odors is hydrogen sulfide. And we're having problems in our biosolids plant that's caused by the odors. Plus, similar to the filter presses, the odor control system has been out there since 2000, and it's showing its age. And this is actually a two-phase project. So in the budget request for this year, we're talking about $300,000 to do some more immediate fixes this year, but then follow up next year with a more robust project. I think the estimate's $1.6 million to actually do a major overhaul of the odor control system. But for this current year, we're only talking about some fixes to some major issues we have out there. So those filter presses create the odors and the hydrogen sulfide, and some of the problems that we're having here is that it's eroding the steel columns that are the supports for the actual building. If we're not handling those chemicals right, it could be unhealthy for our workers. This is what I was talking about with the two-phase project. This is a picture that says it all on the corrosion that's occurring. The hydrogen sulfide is heavier than air, so it settles down on the floor, and it's corrosive to metal, and it's completely corroded through part of that beam that's the support for the building. So the $300,000 project that we're talking about, we go around the building and fix all these problem areas, construct it in a manner that is resistant to hydrogen sulfide in the future, so we don't have this problem occur again. But then also incorporate a few HVAC improvements so that we can try to pick that hydrogen sulfide up off the floor so it doesn't continue to do the same thing it's been doing. And the odor control scrubber, that's a picture of it. Like I said, that's the overhaul for that would be a future project.
Questions? Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. I guess my first concern is the health and welfare of our employees over there. I see this steel beam. That needs to be fixed, of course, and which you're going to do. But waiting another year to eliminate that problem out of the odor scrubber, I mean, is there any way we can do this all at the same time? Because that's our employees' health. Both angles.
Part of the project is to, they're going to put ductwork in on the existing ductwork and bring it down to the floor, so it's pulling it off the floor.
That's
Right
part of phase
now-
one with fixing the, that's part of phase one with fixing the steel beams?
Yes.
Okay, I misunderstood you. I thought it was steel beams and we're
Right.
going to work on the unit
It's going to be
later.
kind of a temporary thing for right now with our, the existing odor scrubber. But on the phase two, when they put the new scrubber in, it'll be, you know, it'll take care of the odors, bring it down to the floor and take it out. Instead of, what it does now, if you look at the picture, the filter press, you can see those hoods over the top.
Right.
So it's pulling everything up it's trying to pull everything up, but it can't. You know, it's heavier than there, so it settles at the floor.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're covering both ends of the health and welfare part at the same time. And you guys, sound like you got a plan. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Howe?
I was just, when they repair the steel, I assume they take new metal up to a safe place before they weld that in. And then what was there a coating or something they put on it to keep it from happening again?
The first thing is we'll get a structural engineer
Right.
to do all this, but the thought right now is that they'll actually cut off the bottom piece and then build it up with concrete up higher, so the concrete is exposed to the hydrogen sulfide, not the metal.
That doesn't affect the concrete then?
Not as readily as the steel.
Okay. Okay, yeah, well, we got a structural guy out there, I'm sure it'll be fine. Mr. Feeney, let me know when you're going, I'm gonna go see that one myself.
Which one?
If we go out for the structural guy.
Okay, we'll go.
Okay. Any other questions? Budget.
Yep. And I probably did jump the gun a little bit because I knew I was going to do that presentation in front of water and sewer, but I didn't realize that water was the first part, so I apologize for jumping to water, but that's where we're at. We're at tab 21, the water fund. What we got here is two tabs. Tab 21 is the overall summary with all the capital expenses, and then tab 22 is the operating budget for the water fund. For the revenues, we're roughly equal to what we have in 2014. Sales are projected to be down slightly, $100,000. In this current year, it looks like we might not hit the projected number because mostly the weather. The weather really drives revenue in the water fund. The weather alone can have a 10 to 12% variance in revenues because a lot of the revenue coming in is irrigation of lawns. If you have a wet year like we've had, people use less water, we have less revenue in our water fund. So there's a lot of fluctuation because simply because of weather. 2012 was our drought year, and that was our peak revenue year, even though we've had rate increases since then. The revenue, we're projecting a total of $5.1 million. 4.3 of that is coming directly from the rates or the sales. The rates do have a 5% increase planned for January 1. That goes back to the 2011 rate ordinance. Programmed rate increases out to 2016. The expenditures for this fund are down $1.2 million, and that's mostly because of capital projects. There's fewer capital projects this year than last year. On the expenditures, our bond payments total $2.5 million annually. And when you look at that compared to revenue, that's 48% of revenue is encumbered with bonds, and that has a severe effect on what we're able to do with the money in this fund. Some good news is that in 2020, $650,000 of that bond payment does drop off, and then after that, it all drops off. But it is a few more years before we get any relief on that bond. The expenditures total $6.5 million, and the notable projects in this fund is the replacement of the RO membranes, $350,000. And you might remember that from previous year. What they've done is they've kept those existing membranes in use because of the filter project that we're actively involved with. The thought was that we don't want to have the new filters go online and have those interject anything to the new membrane. So we want to get the filters done first and then replace the membranes. So we've held off on the membrane replacement that was planned for this year, and we're budgeting it for next year. Well number 4 rehab is in here. We took a tour of one of the wells last night with our Public Works Commission. We actually toured well number 3, showed the condition of that. Well number 4 is in a similar condition, except well number 4 has problems with the actual pump and the wellhead that need to be repaired. So the rehab is $100,000. We have a boxwood main extension to fix pressures in the boxwood area, water pressures, and have more reliability up in that area. And then again, like I mentioned, we did the tour of well number 3. One of the problems we're having at several of our facilities is the roofs. The roof at well 3, 4, 6, and 7 all need repairs. And the roof at well number 3 is in deplorable condition right now. That's $120,000. And then we have a facility plan that's part of the rate study. What we want to do, and you'll see this in the sewer fund as well, we want to do our rate study early. What we want to do is look at our rates before we need to make any adjustments to them. Last time we did the rate study, we were talking about making pretty immediate rate changes, and that wasn't received as well. We thought we'd be better to try to be a year or two ahead of that and start looking at our rates in 2017 and out 5 years from there and do that next year rather than wait until it's right upon us. So the plan would be to do that rate study. In order to do the rate study, you need to have the facility plan completed so you know what your priorities are with your system and your facility. That facility plan was done on the sewer side already. So this budget here is to do the facility plan in the water fund, and then you could build upon that the rate study and plan your rates going into the future with all that. And that was $200,000. And again, we'd be looking at the rates from 2017 out to 2022, and we'd be doing that a couple years in advance, but thought maybe it'd be better to do that ahead of time rather than right when it should happen. And then the last major item is to demolish a couple of sites that haven't been used in many years, and those would be well number 2, number 5, and the School Street Tower. And I know Dan had passed out some maps because we had a question as where are all these things. So we passed out a map of where each one of these facilities is. And to wrap up capital, I know that there was a very strong desire, and it's with us as well, to do a water main replacement program. And when we laid out all the things with the priorities, there just wasn't enough funding available for a water replacement program. As I had mentioned, the bond payments nearly take up half of the revenues in this fund. The bottom line, the balance at the end of the year is projected to be about just over $1.5 million, and Vicki likes that to be around $2 million, if I'm correct, right, Vicki? And so we're already below what Vicki's threshold is with what you have in front of you. So trying to do a water main replacement program didn't make the cut. Like I said, it's very important to us too, but we had to prioritize it among other things. And that's not to say we're not still proceeding with the Main Street stuff. That had some budget money this year, and that is ongoing, and working with the surveyors and the engineers on that. So we're proceeding with that anyway, because that has money this year. On the operating side of things, it's it's very similar to last year. This is tab 22. The distribution system maintenance, you'll find that it goes up $90,000. And the reason for that $90,000 change is that previously we had the meter purchases, fire hydrant and the valve purchases on a capital line. And since that was an annual reoccurring expense, it was thought that that should be an operating expense, and so it was moved over into the operating fund, and that affected that line by $90,000. You'll also see a $27,500 reduction in the legal fee, professional and legal fees, and that's simply just because those funds were not being used as much, and we weren't requesting as much for the next year. And then you'll also see part-time wages and contract services change by about $30,000. That's because $30,000 is being moved from the part-time wages over to the contract services wages, our line, and it's to pay for the consultant or the firm that we go to for our temporary labor. So it's the same dollar amount, but it's just in a different line. So that's the fund. There are two requests that we had to go along with that. I don't know if you want to take us. Okay. The two items that we wanted to discuss was one, the vehicle. The first one was the vehicle. The recommendation for one of the vehicles was to be a Ford Fusion, a sedan. It would be our request that we have that changed to a all-wheel drive Escape, which is an additional $4,000 on that line. The reasoning that we have for that is that, number one, with water and sewer, we have a lot of lines that are in areas that don't have roads. The sewer lines generally follow the creeks. When we have to get back there and do work on them, we don't have a paved surface to do that. A few years ago, we had a major main break behind MEMC on a major line in a creek back there, and we actually had to drive through MEMC and through the farm fields that are adjacent there to get back to that main break, and we need vehicles to be able to do that. Number two would be that many of the water and sewer projects run through undeveloped areas. Just like the St. Gemma water main that we're going to construction on right now, it leaves at the dead end of a street in Deer Creek, goes through his farm fields, crosses under Prute Creek, goes up the hill and ties into Walden Pond at the dead end there. So there's a lot of off-road work going on with that project. The boxwood main that we're talking about here, if that gets approved, that would go through an undeveloped area to make the connection there. We also have the sewer lining projects. When we do those are always in off the road, hard to reach places. And then the third reason was new developments. Water and sewer lines are always installed prior to the roads in new development. So if there's a need to go out there, like in Brookside, 3 phases going in, the Manors at Dames Park, which is the old Highland Green, those lines are always put in before the roads are there. I myself have been out on a project like that and gotten stuck and it was a Ford pickup truck, had to get out and lock the front hubs in and go in 4-wheel drive to get out of it. So it does happen. So our request is to have the all-wheel drive Escape for that vehicle.
Who's going to be driving it?
That's the water and sewer superintendent's vehicle.
That'd be Mike?
Yeah.
How often is he out there? How often is he out?
I mean,
what I'm saying is, how often is he going to be out on those projects? My piece.
Yeah.
I think, him with the Ford Fusion, that's fine, because I don't think he's going to be out. Now, if it was for Mr. Shearer or one of the other folks, I don't have a problem with it. But, I believe Mr. Pratt's going to be not going to be out on those sites. And if he's going to go out on sites, he can go out with Mr. Shearer or somebody else. So.
I agree.
Questions or comments? Mr. Pepper?
Now, just to make sure, we are within tab 22, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Make sure I'm in the right
21 and
place.
22.
21 and 22.
Questions or?
Yes. If you go back to, I guess it's what the third, it's the water narrative, go to 510-5905. Telephone. I really do not understand that $14,000. I would really like a good explanation of it.
Yeah, and I know that you asked that question earlier today, and we gave you part of the answer because it would take time to pull out the bills and get the complete detail for you. But that's what we're going to have to do is pull out the bills.
Okay, because I would be thinking that if, the phones over there, regardless of where they're at, could be tied into the existing lines that we have, if needed. Thought process, okay. I understand that over there, too, there's also that was the emergency area. If phones went down here, they could go over there.
If something happens here,
Right.
City Hall, that's our second.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
TMC.
Right. And then where, in other words, who's footing the bill for that? And I'm questioning why, if that's part of this right here, then I'm saying, why is it underwater? Please research and get back on that, okay? I'd appreciate it. And my next one is the following page, the water purchases. I'd like to understand, somebody really explain that one to me if you could, please.
And the water purchases, we noted 3 areas in the detail there. One was Fort Zumwalt Park, the other was the Southwest Booster area, and the last one was the Pine Brook? Pebblebrook, I was close, subdivision. So the Fort Zumwalt Park is in error. We need to delete that out of there. So it simply comes down to the southwest booster station area and the Pebblebrook area.
Okay, how much is Fort Zumwalt coming out of there? It's going into parks.
The words should not have been in the detail. The money is fine. Parks pays for Fort Zumwalt Park, and they have it's Public Water District number 2.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
So the southwest booster area is an entire area in the southwest part of town, or southwest part of the district, that for us to serve that area adequately, we were going to have to build a large water tower to serve the pressures right. So the cost of that was going to be millions of dollars. It was cheaper to work with Public Water District number 2 and buy water from them and serve that area. They're still our customers. The city buys the water from the district, and that's what that line is for. And
Fort Zumwalt was just a mistake in the narrative. It's over in recreation.
And then Pebblebrook is treated the same way. We pay for the water, but they're our customers.
Is there any cost recovery on the amount that we're buying to do that? Or is it, this is just ongoing, this is an extra expense?
It's all the saved capital expenses. If we had to serve that area with our own system, we would have to pour a huge amount of capital expenses to do it adequately. That area, as the councilman for that area can testify, was noted for low pressures for years and years. We couldn't get the pressures up. The only way to get the pressures up was to build a water tower and a booster station. So we saved all those expenses by doing it this way.
Okay. I'll take you at your word on this one, okay? But that stood out like a sore thumb.
Tell you what, you can take his word, you can take Mr. Schwecker's word, Mr. Hinman's word, my word, and Mr. Howell's word. Because we lived through that.
You better believe it.
So.
You better believe it.
Anything else?
That should do it for now.
Mr. Schwenker.
Do we have teeth in place to collect the bad debt for this fund? I know we asked that before. I mean, we have bad debt and it gets up to $30,000, $50,000, $60,000. Do we have any kind of ordinance with teeth in it to where we can recoup them funds?
Yeah, we have a collection agency that we use, and we go, to collect the, bad debt accounts. The only one that we have issues with is on the sewer side. When we offer sewer, but we do not have water, it's a little bit harder to collect that. Now, we still send all of our bad debts to the collection agency, and we have a fairly decent recovery rate on that. But when you have sewer only, there's not a lot you can hold over, a resident to get them to come in and pay. With water, we can cut off the water service.
Turn the valve.
Well, we don't service water in that area, in those areas.
I guarantee you they'll pay you.
You cannot do that.
Yeah, so we've tried in the past to, negotiate with the water company to turn it off, but when we do that, they're losing revenue. So there's a cost to us for doing that. So there's going to be some other options that we're going to look at. We have a new utility billing specialist, so we're going to try and talk to her and see what they did where she came and the other places that she worked to see if we can't collect a higher rate of revenue on that side. But we do have the ordinance that we have in place. When we do collections on a household, the revenue first goes to the trash service, then the sewer service, and then the water service. So that way, if you're delinquent and you have water, it's going to be on your water, so that we have the ability to shut it off.
Okay. And then the other questions is, I know when Steve, you're talking about doing the rate study, ahead of time. When we do that, I mean, I'm sure you're going to figure in everything you're talking about, the capital improvement where we want to start replacing the mains. Are you going to try to figure all that stuff in? So,
yes,
because I know I didn't say it when trash service was up here, but, one thing we always do, and we did it with the Renaud Spirit Center, we did it with the parks, we always want to brag that we hold the prices. We're holding the prices. Our trash has been $11.35 for 15 years. Well, there's gonna be a time we have to pay the piper, and the same thing with this. We have to raise the rates. Yeah, it's great. It's great for all of us when everybody says, "Oh, we're holding the rates." The rates have never changed in 10 years. It's not feasible. So we really have to look at that, because I know we're wanting to do the replacement of the mains. that department, not this year, because this council said it, but I can tell you that department is short-staffed on water. And I know that should be figured in, you know, to where I know they're going to need more staff. I mean, it's a fund of its own, so it's and not anything we have to figure out. That I mean, we need to start charging what we need to be charging so we can start doing the things that have to be done, or else we're going to fall on our face.
You're exactly right. You need to know what the needs of the system are for long term, and then set your prices accordingly so that you can do those.
So
and set your
we are going to
priorities.
take all those factors in when we start to look at this rate study.
Yeah, and you're also going to look at the bonds. The bonds finish in 2020.
Yeah, that was only part of them.
Huh?
I said that was only part of them.
But that's a big chunk.
It helps, right?
It helps.
Right. And I mean, I know it's passed, but I mean, we have to do the same thing with trash. Jim slipped in and out before I got to say that, but we have to do the same thing with trash because there's a lot of things that need to be improved down there that we're not doing, but yet we want to brag and say, well, we've held the rates at this price for 5 years. Well, you know what? You have to make a move slowly. You don't have to make, but you have to make slow loose moves so we can improve it. I mean, we had that problem in the parks at the Renard Spirit Center. They've corrected that, and everything is running very smooth now. You know, we just need to get on board with that in every department.
Mr. Lucas?
I have a question, and this has to do with the 2 wells that you're going to cap. I know those are 2 wells you haven't used in a significant longer time, so you're going to take the buildings and the pumps and everything away, and you're just going to, the wells are going to be capped off, right? The wells that leaves us, are they producing as sufficient to carry us well into the future, or do you see a need? Obviously, I think there's some issues with these 2 wells that you couldn't restart. You wouldn't want to restart them and try to utilize them, but how far down the road before we have to drop in a new well somewhere? Or have you, I mean, is that in there?
That's the reason for a facility plan. You want to study those things and come up with those conclusions before you set your rates, and then you want to put estimates to all that. So you want to look at all your wells, make sure they're operating efficiently or properly, and then if they're not, you got a plan for replacing them or expanding them in the future, and that's what a facility plan does
So
for you.
you don't have one right now, but you will have once we get the rest of this stuff done. The next question, on the wells that we currently have, are there any that are running in the close to the line as far as the salinity and some of the other things that go on there? They're all well within tolerance, and we don't have any?
Quality at the existing wells is very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Pepper?
Just one quick one, Steve. One thing I noticed here, and I can't seem to find it in the rest of them, but this cost for tuck pointing the building?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that cost shared among all of the people that use that building?
You know, we only have it set up for water and sewer in that case. You know, I guess we didn't think about it that way. That's the front that they use. That's the side that they come in and out of, and it happens to be the front of the building. But that's the way we planned it, was just water and sewer on that one.
Okay, and that's the only people that are in those offices surrounded by those walls?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're on that side of the building. Everybody else is on a different side of the building. I see your point. We planned it out with water and sewer. That's the way we did it.
Okay.
Any other questions on water?
The only other quick thing, Mayor, is one thing that we realized was cell towers. There's a lot of them on water towers, and generally what we've been doing is giving the revenues, like Recreation gets the revenues for theirs that are on their property, but we've never done it for water and if there's been any sewer. So I would assume, but we didn't do it in this case, that you feel if we've done it for one, we should do it for all and make sure their revenues for their facilities go back to this fund.
What's good for one is good for all.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Agreed.
Now,
We'll do it for the future.
Before we go on to the next tab, Mr. Bender did ask if they would take the Fusion instead, take the Ford instead of the Fusion, or the Escape, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Anybody want to give him the escape? There's your answer, sir. Mr. Hammond.
Just one?
I was going to comment on the fusion and escape since you brought it back up, but I think that the fusion is perfectly, and I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
Mike needs to get out and walk.
Okay. That it on water?
That is it on water, so we would be going to tab number 23 now, and that's the sewer fund. So tab 23 is the overall summary with the capital. Tab 24 is the operating budget. The revenues in this fund, sales are projected to be level with 2014. There's only a slight increase in total revenue for 2015 of about $150,000. The total revenue here is $8 million, and of that $8 million, $7.5 million comes from the sales. The rates here, there is no rate increase planned for 2016. The rates in this fund have not changed since 2012, and that was from the same rate ordinance that was established back in 2011. And actually, it was reduced when we went from 11 to 12. This fund actually reduced the rates. The expenditures here are increasing significantly with some large capital projects. Bond payments in this fund are $2.75 million. That comes to 34% of the revenue in this fund. In this fund, in 2018, which doesn't sound too far away, it will drop $900,000, and that will be within the range of that rate study, so that'll be a big help to this fund as well. The total expenditures are $10 million. The notable capital projects are the Peru Creek work that we talked about at $2.5 million, and I should note that this sizable project was not anticipated last year when we were talking budget. Last year when we were talking budget, we were talking about needing to upgrade the effluent line out of the plant, and that was roughly a $4 million job, and we couldn't afford it this year, so we were trying to save up money and do it next year. So what this project does is it bumps that effluent line project back again, because $2.5 million just can't be absorbed along with a $4 million project, so I wanted to point that out. The next project would be the sludge dewatering project, the $400,000 we talked about. The odor control system at $300,000. And then we have some entrance and lot improvements at $70,000. And this is, to go to Mr. Pepper's questions, this is solely in the parking area that the water and sewer uses. It is on the same shared site as everybody else, but it was the area that water and sewer uses. And then the rate analysis in this fund was $15,000. And as I mentioned previously, the facility plan was completed this year, so we already have that in hand. The operating funds are up $130,000. It's a 3.7% increase. With this, the notable items are the part-time is being moved to contract services, $30,000, just like I'd mentioned in water. The equipment repair and maintenance line is changing from $19,000 to $39,000, and that's because we are doing the grouting equipment, and that's $15,000, and the new electroscan software stuff, $3,000. Those two items made up a significant part of that increase. And then the telephone, in this fund, there's $21,000 for telephone for dialers, and what that is all the lift stations have cell phone dialers, and they communicate they communicate with those facilities through the dialers. We do a 3-year contract on that, and that's the $21,000. We do a 3-year contract because it's a lot cheaper if you do that 3-year commitment. So the next 2 years, you won't see a bill at all. So this covers 3 years' worth all at once. But we do that because it's cheaper. And then professional fees, we've only spent a little bit of that. So we're doing a real good job keeping that down low. But that number was $32,000 that we were asking for there. And that's the summary for that fund.
Questions? Mr. Pepper, do you have something?
No, sir.
Okay.
Oh, Oh, I would have one, but I think Vicki has answered mine already.
Okay.
Has to do with the Kronos and whatever software expenses, questioning as to why we have two. Why don't we go on one? And she informed me of something that may be happening, so.
Yeah, we'll report that under the finance department.
Okay. Questions?
All right. So move to tab 25, which is the project managers in the general fund. So thank you, Dan.
Dan, go bring home a winner, will you?
One of the things, too, I wanted to mention, Siemens will be here in November to give you their recommendations for energy savings projects, too. So they'll be reporting back to you in November on water and sewer. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
So this fund, tab 25, this is simply the split of labor that the project managers have for general fund activities. So every year, they look at the number of projects coming through or anticipated, and they estimate their percentage for each fund and allocate it accordingly. So this is the portion of the project management fund that is attributable to the general fund. This is the labor hours only for that.
Questions? Move on.
So tab 26 is the engineering division. This is the general fund now. Engineering division, the portion of this that is in general fund is mostly the plan review and the construction inspection. In this fund, the numbers are very similar to last year. Overall, there is a 7% reduction. One of the items that is up is the telephone line item, and that's because we're wanting to acquire some iPads for the field employees so they can do more work from the field and not have to bring it in and have it transferred into some other format. And then there is some money for furniture and fixtures that is up a little bit, and that's to put some signs in City Hall to update for changes that have happened in City Hall for residents come in so they can find their destination better, and a new computer and some chairs. But we didn't have any money in that line last year. That's why it's a significant change.
Mr. Lucas?
I only got a quick one on the wages. Was there someone moved out of that department, or part of their wages changed to a different department? Is that the reason for the decrease?
Yes, sir. We've got a lot of capital projects planned for next year, so a lot of the inspectors will be moved over and provide extra hours on the construction inspection street side versus.
The cost being picked up by a different.
Yeah, it's just the cost being shifted over to a different fund.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Mr. Pepper?
Steve, congratulations on the overtime 2013 to propose. It's a 75% reduction overall. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Any other questions? Move ahead.
I believe we're moving to tab 27. This is the Street Road Improvement Fund, known as SRIF. Here we got 3 tabs that are involved. Tab 27 is the overall summary with the capital, like Water and Sewer had done. Tab 28 is the operating fund for Street Division. And then tab 29 are the splits coming from project management, fleet, and landscaping. So the revenues in this fund come from the half-cent city sales tax, generates $5.2 million. State motor fuel tax generates $2.8 million. Oh. County road and bridge property tax generates $1.6 million. And then a lot of the rest depends on the amount of grants that we acquire throughout the course of the year. They're all pretty much level with 2014 is the way we're projecting it. The major change is the $6.5 million coming in from the MoDOT reimbursement on the South Outer Road. That makes a total of $18.9 million in revenues for this fund. The expenditures that we're projecting are $16.7 million. Bond payments are 3.1 every year, $3.1 million every year. This is 16% of the revenue. But I also looked at that as a percentage of operating, and that's 50% of the operating budget if you were just paying the bonds and comparing it to operating. In 2022, those bond payments drop off significantly down $2.7 million. So 2022 can't get here sooner. The significant capital items are, we're continuing with the fourth year of the concrete slab repair program. This year, we'll have a significant increase in the amount that we're putting towards this slab repair project. We're going to go with right around $2 million in contracted work. We also applied for and received about a $1 million federal reimbursement for slab repairs. So that is $3 million. And then the street division will continue their work that they do an equivalent of $1 million. So it's, add all those up, it's almost $4 million in concrete slab repairs in 1 year. So that's up significantly. We're also going to get back into the asphalt overlay. Hadn't done that in a couple years at $500,000. Continue the crack seal program at $200,000. We have a intersection project at the intersection of Summers Road and Highway N at $735,000. And then we're also going to be able to replace some of our aging vehicles and equipment. If you add them all up, comes to about $1.2 million. And some projects that we'll be designing to get going for future years is the Wabash Road out the back of City Hall here. That will get designed. Hawk Ridge Trail and N will start design. And we'll also start work on the design on the Lake St. Louis Boulevard extension down off of N as well. A couple of things that are new that I wanted to bring to your attention is $50,000 in upgrade of streets in developments, and $60,000 in a solar lighting pilot project. So the upgrade in streets for developments is that what we want to do is work out an arrangement where we negotiate it with developers where we pay part of the cost to upgrade from a 6-inch pavement to a 7-inch pavement in subdivision streets, and we would use this money to pay for that. The strength gain and the durability you get out from a 6-inch pavement to a 7-inch pavement is very significant, and the cost to do that is not a whole lot. And since that infrastructure is the city's infrastructure for a lifetime, making a small investment up front, what we thought would be a good thing, and we do that in cooperation with the developers and work with them to make that happen. So it would be a case-by-case basis, but that would be the money that we would go to make that happen if we're able to work that out. Then the solar lighting pilot project is we want to try to if we're going to get into solar lighting, and I'm talking about in the subdivisions, we need to have a product that we use. We can't have a hodgepodge of different solar lights. You know, we basically have one type of light in all of our subdivisions, or maybe slight variations of that. And if they're city lights and we have to maintain them, we have to have uniformity in the style of light that's used. We need to make sure it's a good light. And so what we want to do is have a pilot project, test out some different options, actually put them out in subdivision streets, get some feedback from the residents before we march down the road of trying to do anything larger than that. So that $60,000 is to get that program going and test out maybe 3 different types of lights. So we get some feedback on them and see how they go. On the operating side of things, the major item affecting this is salt expenses, as I'm sure you would have guessed. That alone really makes up the difference in the total change in the operating budget. There's about a $300,000 swing based on that alone. Otherwise than that, the operating budget is generally similar to this current year. And we do have a personnel request and a vehicle request. I don't know if you want to do that now or if you want to take questions.
Questions first. I love that you're trying to do $4 million worth of slab replacement. I know it's not 12 months. We don't get it done in 12 months. But you're going to do $4 million worth of slab replacement next year?
You know, Wade has expressed concern over that challenge as well, but I'm confident he could do it.
Well,
It's going to,
and I understand, I know a lot of it has to depend on weather, but, my concern is, what we have, $1 million worth of slab replacements this year?
yeah.
We're going to 4 million. If you guys think we can do it, I trust it, if you guys think we can do it, that's fine. But, my big concern is going from $1 million to a $4 million slab replacement. Comments? Wade?
You've never been lost for words until tonight.
I just want you to be honest. If you guys don't think we can do it,
Let's not put it in.
let's not put it in. You tell me if you think we can do it.
One of them is the federal project, which that's kind of similar to our other projects. So instead of doing necessarily other road projects, or we didn't get other road projects, that's what we applied for and received that year. So that's kind of in line. Instead of doing a roadway widening or something like that, we're doing instead the $1 million in slabs. So that kind of equals that out. Now, $2 million in slab repair plus the asphalt, we will have our hands full. We can't guarantee that our overtime may not come in at 4,000. It may be higher, but we have pretty good inspectors out there. So
You think we can do it?
I think we can do it. We'll be very busy, but
I got your feet to the fire. Mr. Hammond? I got you.
I don't think I had a question this time.
Oh, I thought you had your hand up.
No, I was just...
Sorry, Mr. Howe?
Thank you, Mayor. And on to that, I agree that's quite a chunk, but I think if we get this information out early enough, that's going to be huge. If there's people out there knowing that we've got this kind of money to spend in this city on that type of project, I think we might not have as much trouble getting in some good prices and some good bids. So that's my one concern. And the 6 and 7-inch pours with the developers, the only thing I ask for that, I think it's great. I said it's not that much more money, but just to make sure we've got the inspectors there when the pours are going on and getting the core samples. Just, if we're going to do it, let's make sure it's done right. That's all I ask for that.
If we're putting money in to make it a 7-inch, it better be 7-inch.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want a 4.
Yeah, we don't want to go out there, in a year and
Make it
drill it and
6.
find it's 4, whatever. You guys know what I'm saying. But, yeah, as far as that kind of money's going, this is, you guys know, it's always been the #1 concern of all the residences is the street slabs, the infrastructure and everything else. So this is the best news I've heard yet. Probably here for a long time, but
Right.
the sooner we get this information out, I think the better we're going to be. So, all right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Pepper?
Just a clarification, Steve, on the solar street lights, those are going to be LED types, aren't they?
Yes.
They're not going to be sodium and none of that. We're going to go
No,
with LED solars.
Yeah, it most likely, I don't see any other option than really LED, but, if we come across something, we'll bring it back to you, but I'm thinking it'll be LED.
Yeah, 'cause that's a good thing, all the different ones, different types of LEDs, and how there is another good test at the same time with solar.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Hinman?
Thank you. Do we control the intersection at Knaust and Laura Hill for streetlights?
Knaust in Laura Hill. Now, I think that's a county signal. Is that correct? Yeah.
The streetlights, not the signal.
Oh.
It must have been in the last few days they switched out the lights there, and it is amazing
Yeah.
the difference that it makes.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out where all the light was coming from when I came up to the intersection.
Yeah.
It's like a spotlight out there. It's fantastic. So I'm hoping we can move to those very soon because it makes a huge difference at that intersection.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Schwenker?
I agree with Councilman Howell. I think we can do the $4 million. For one thing, we're contracting a lot more out than we ever did before, but I know our inspectors have to be out there to check it, but I think we can do it as long as we get it out in time, and so everybody knows what we're doing. And on the 6-inch versus a 7-inch, I take it our ordinance is 6-inch now?
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point. That the ordinance only requires a 6-inch in a subdivision street.
Instead of us adding money, I understand we're already underway this year, but can we look at changing our ordinance and we have it changed to a 7-inch?
I mean,
Where we require a 7-inch pour and then we're not adding money to it, the developers that's developing it would, and if it's
yeah,
not that much, we ought to look into it instead of doing this, you know, we'll make them do 6 inches and then we pay for 7 inches. They just ought to pay for 7 inches. If that's what this city feels should be required for a good street, then we should go from 6 inches to 7 inches. If we honestly think that's the way it should be, then they should be paying for it.
Right, and Wentzville is doing that very thing. So, yeah, there's some groups that would be very, they would want to talk to us about that, but we can start that.
I think we should start that process and looking at it. I mean, but you also have to have your ducks in a row to where if you're saying you think 7 inches is going to make that much of a difference of longevity, and that's the way we're moving. I mean, because our infrastructure seems like, you know, it got tore up pretty quick on a lot of stuff. And I mean, if it's because it wasn't 7 inch and it should have been 7 inch, then we need to move that direction.
Yeah.
And before we do that, we need to find out what St. Charles County's doing. All the
Yes.
cities around us.
Yes.
I mean, what St. Charles, you said Wentzville's the only one doing 7?
That's the only one I know of, yeah.
I would go to check because I think what the developers and the builders are looking for is uniformity throughout St. Charles County. So I know that's what they're looking for. So if they
Okay.
come to O'Fallon, it's this. If they go to Wentzville, or
Okay.
it's not a whole lot of difference.
So to follow up what Mayor's saying makes perfectly good sense. So if Wentzville is the only one, then while we're checking, maybe we should tell St. Peter's that we're possibly going to 7, Lake St. Louis we're going to 7, so everybody does stay in line.
Yeah, we can do that.
We got better streets than you do.
Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. Councilman Schwenker, I agree, and I always talk about when we're doing things here, the city has to have some skin in the game. So even if we were to pass the ordinance now, all of our developments coming in now would still be under the 6-inch rule. But we're putting some money towards some of those and go 7 inches. We do have skin in the game. I think it's a lot easier for future development to say, hey, the city's it's that important to the city, and I agree with you. We might as well change it. If it's a much better pour and it's a much more sounder street, go to 7. I don't much care what the other cities around us are doing. I mean, they're not paying to repair our streets. We are. So I agree. If we need to go to 7, go to 7. We can show developers we got skin in the game. We're willing to pay for that extra inch from this year to the developments that are coming in. So it's important to us that we're going to put some money into it. I think it's important that everybody should do it. And I totally agree with you.
You know, and we think it's a benefit to the developers, too. You all have seen at the tail end of a development, developers have to go back in there, rip slabs out.
Sure.
We think this will avoid them having to do that quite as much as well.
I
so.
agree.
Let's get off camera. Any other questions? So I wasn't going to forget you. So you're going to make a plea for a vehicle and personnel that's not in the budget, correct?
That is correct.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, the personnel request was emailed out earlier today, so you've probably seen that, but Ken did bring another copy of that, and
I don't need it.
he'll pass that out for anybody that needs it. And
Anybody need a copy of it?
I got it.
I got it.
We read the email.
the base, I mean, how much summary should I get into it if everybody's read it already? So,
For the folks at home, I would
so
do what you want to do.
basically, what we've got is we got a lot of part-time labor in that fund. Actually, give me that sheet. So, and what we're talking about is taking all the street maintenance worker labor out, and instead of doing part-time labor, converting it to full-time labor, but only 4 full-time positions. And when you calculate the difference, it saves the city almost $50,000. And it's a significant reduction in the number of labor hours that it actually put out on the street. The labor hours and part-time is about 12,000 labor hours, and that the 4 full-time positions only come out to about 8,000 labor hours. So it's a significant reduction in the amount of labor that'll be out on the street. But we feel that this is better. The division feels it's better. They talked it over with the crews and everybody because of the effort that is going into hiring the part-time staff. And the part-time staff coming in today is not nearly as good as it was 2 and 3 years ago. So there's a lot of effort in the hiring process, the training process, and the numbers are pretty significant because they've had to hire for a handful of part-time positions, was it 26 people?
22.
Well, we've started 26 new seasonal employees this year to keep a handful of part-time positions open. And it's rather burdensome for the department to keep going through that. So if we have full-time people, we get them trained. There are employees for on, and we get to build their skills up, and we don't lose them. We've also included all the extra costs that are associated with full-time labor. We put the pension in there, the pension costs in there, the insurance costs, health care costs. We put all the costs in there, and we still save the $50,000 every year on the budget to make this proposal happen.
Okay, so before you get to the vehicle, we're going to have another meeting next Wednesday?
Wednesday.
So this will be decided on then. I mean, we can have the discussion now. So,
Question.
Mr. Lucas had his hand up first.
We all got questions.
Mr. Lucas.
My only question, Steve, is I do see the advantage of having somebody that you can keep long-term trained, and I understand that. Your projection 7, 8 years down the road is such that those people are still going to have plenty of work to do within this department, and we're not overstaffed. Down 6 or 7 years down the road, I understand we got the need now. It's obvious with $4 million worth of work coming out, but you're confident that 7, 8, 10 years down the road, we still got plenty of work to justify those 4 positions. I'm actually hoping we justify more, but
Yeah, I mean, the city, the infrastructure is still growing, so even though a lot of the developments you might see is built out, we haven't necessarily taken over maintenance of those streets. So every year, every time we pass an ordinance to accept and dedicate streets, we're taking on more infrastructure for the street department to take over. Every time we approve a new subdivision, there's more infrastructure for the street department to take over. And their backlog on work orders is immense. We're not able to provide the customer service that we want to provide, and so we need to get there. So this is going in the right direction for that.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Pepper?
Just a clarification, Steve, part-time and seasonal, are those being used interchangeable?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Howe?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to actually, I read everything you said in that email, and I'm going to agree, just for the fact, what makes the most sense is our lane miles have went from what to what now?
Yeah.
400 and something to 700 and something?
Immensely.
In 2002, we had 471 lane miles, and currently we have 707.
Okay.
So it's a 50% increase.
Right,
300,000 more lanes.
and that's just one point. But I do understand where you were saying, you know, several years back, you got some pretty qualified people. There was a lot of unemployment, you know, it was no secret, and there was a lot of qualified people out on the streets looking for jobs. So you got them, and you wanted to keep them, okay? And the way the city was at the time and everything else, we wouldn't let it happen, okay? So then, when you're going back and you're trying to pick up from these, I don't know, whatever you call them, these labor baby places where they throw you a name and a number and you get a guy, and for lack of a better word, and you know, like you said in the email, sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't, you don't get a call. I can see that because, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, the workforce is starting to boom again. Things are moving. A lot of things going on. Economy's really picking up, and it's going to be for the next couple, I'm going to say couple, I'm no expert, but I do listen to a lot of people and I get a lot of information from different sources, and I'm thinking the next few years are going to really be busy. So we're not going to be able to spend the time to get somebody, train them, if they're good, lose them. Bottom line, I agree with you. Let's some, if we got these guys part-time, they know what they're doing, we got good qualified people, bring them up. We're going to need them. They're going to know what they're doing. You won't have to spend all the time with them, period.
Mr. Feeney?
Thank you, Mayor. Steve, I do agree with you adding the additional people.
Wow, there's two.
Along with what Mr. Howell had to say, I think the time you spend interviewing, training, retraining, re-interviewing, you're spending a lot of hours that we don't account for. Because your salaried people, you don't account for those hours, and you could be doing other things that are very important. So to me, it makes sense to bring up some additional people. Otherwise, you're going to spend more time talking to people than gaining your workload.
And that drills down to the crew level, too. So when you got a new guy on a crew, the guy next to him has to help him out.
Yep.
So.
Mr. Hinman?
Thank you. I also agree with it, and I think the direction of the council was, no new hires, no additions to staff, but you found a way to work it out and actually save money by doing this and putting some money back into the budget by creating these positions. So I would thank you for that and finding a creative way to add some people, quality people to your staff.
Like I called it a staff reduction proposal.
Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. If these new positions are not approved, can you still do all that work that the mayor was concerned about earlier?
Wade?
Is that going to
Yeah, our construction projects will be separate from their work order.
That
and
has
slab
nothing to
repair
do
they
with this at all. I just want to clarify that that's not an add-on to all that project.
Those three.
Mr. Patel?
Steve, I emailed my question to you. Do you have an idea on percentage of increase in work orders that you're able to get through for the year, or with these additional staff?
Well, yeah, the key thing here is that we're actually reducing the number of labor hours going out on the street. So what we're saying is that we'll continue to do what we've been doing with fewer labor hours. So we're going to do the same amount or more with less. And then over time, it just, the amount of work grows too. On the back of what we didn't email out before was, and on the back of what Ken was holding out, and I could just hold it out there, this is the history of our work orders and slabs. And you can see this is 2007, and when we've had a steady increase, and we've always been increasing, and we'll commit to keep that trend going with this.
Okay, so I think the majority of the council is in support of this. Based on all the information you provided us, next year, can you update the council what the effect of hiring these 4 full-time staffers has had for your department?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, Bob, you want to take your shoes off to make the council?
Well, there's only 9 of us up here tonight, so
Well,
it's 7.
and to give Vicki and Bonnie a little heads up, does anybody have a problem with them going ahead and putting that in the budget? We'll still decide on it next Wednesday night, but to give them kind of a heads up, to go ahead and have it in the budget and update Wednesday's meeting. Anybody have a problem having them add that into the budget?
No problem here.
Do you want it in a motion form, or?
No, I just
No,
need.
as long as we put it on the list for your
Jeffrey?
decision.
Vicki, are these numbers from you on what's on
We
here?
only trust you.
Actually, the information that was provided, Ken Hamill had prepared that, but they did come to me and have me look over everything, and I agree with all of the numbers.
Okay, so are you saying we got 9 part-time right now that's working?
There's enough hours to cover, there are enough hours to cover 9 part-time employees.
That's what we have right now?
Yes.
So we're going to be getting rid of 5 people?
Yes. Actually, because of the difficulties in keeping these individuals hired, we do have 9. We would, if we were able to keep them all from the time that they were hired to the end of December, we would have only had 8 employees employed with us over that time period. But since the door keeps revolving, we currently have 9.
So we will only have 4, we'll have a reduction of 5.
Yes.
And it'll be put out for bid.
It won't be up for bid. It'll be
Advertised.
posted.
It'll be posted.
Yes.
We'll post it and
Full-time
interview
position.
for the full-time positions.
So in case there's a better qualified person out there,
Yes.
we would get that person.
Street, what is it, street
We
worker
have to go
1?
through that, yeah.
Is that what it is, street worker 1 or whatever?
Yeah, street maintenance worker.
Street maintenance worker?
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I say that is it was a good presentation, but in here, when it says 2, 2 or 3 was let go because of inexperience. You know, I'm not sure why we're hiring people that's not even inexperienced, because, I mean,
Yeah, but they're coming in through the temp agency, so we try it. and
Candidate pool.
okay.
Didn't work.
Okay, so we can be more efficient with the full-time. We can be more efficient of who we hire.
More
Okay.
selective.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I go to try to meet with these employee groups 3 to 4 times a year, and I always say, issues, concerns. This was number one that came out with the rank and file on streets, and they just pleaded, could we do something? So I know they're going to be thrilled if you do approve it, because they just spend so many hours training these guys over and over, and then they're not on the road doing what they got to do. So
Well,
thank
it's
you.
as
If it happens.
Councilman Howell said, I mean, it is a reduction, so if we can be more efficient with a reduction in salary.
Lean government.
Okay. Pitch your next one.
The vehicle request is very similar to the earlier request. What was recommended was a Ford Fusion. Now, I will point out that the vehicle that's getting traded in is currently a four-wheel drive Ford Explorer, and so we want it to be all-wheel drive Escape, which is a smaller size vehicle than we currently have there. And similarly, a lot of the work that the project managers do, it's in off-road areas, like I explained before. There are a lot of lines that don't have roads to them. The project run through undeveloped areas. In their case, they got projects like the Guthrie Road extension that was through a rugged area. The Crusher Road went through virgin territory. We're going to have Lake St. Louis Boulevard extension go through virgin territory. And they also have to deal with the new developments. They're reviewing and improving the new developments, and their infrastructure is going in before the roads are in, so that when they have to go out there, they need a better vehicle than a sedan. And one final thing that's different is we use this vehicle during snow operations. When we have the larger snow events, we bring them in to help the street division. We have them resolve resident issues, work orders. We try to take the burden off of the snowplow drivers so that the snowplows can keep moving, and we take care of work orders, resident concerns. We pick up and drop off the CERT volunteers. If we need to provide food for the drivers, we'll provide food for the drivers. And then, unfortunately, we do have accidents. And when there's accidents, instead of having a plow stop and assist and take a driver in for a drug test because we have to and there's an accident, we can use this vehicle to get out there and do that. And my vehicle is an all-wheel drive Escape. I do that, but I also call upon Wade or Jim Winzura or somebody else, and that's the vehicle we use for that.
Who's going to be driving the Ford Fusion? Or the Ford Escape, or the Escape? Who's driving it? Project manager?
It's a shared vehicle, so it would be anybody in the engineering department.
Yeah, so me and Jay would use it, Jeannie, Bob, our plan reviewers when they're going out looking at new sites, or project managers when they're going out checking on projects, even somewhat inspection that they do. So our whole office basically uses this vehicle. So.
And they have 2 vehicles. They could also borrow mine, so you can count mine as a 3rd vehicle. But they have 2 vehicles, and their other vehicle is a 2-wheel drive. So the reason we want to have that extra one.
Question? Bring it up on Thursday or Wednesday.
Okay. We'll add it to the list.
And one final point on this fund.
Dave has it.
I forgot to say it earlier.
Do you have a question, Dave?
Not on the vehicle, I'm on budget, when we get back to budget.
Okay.
I think we're on there, Dave.
Yeah, I was going to add one more comment on this fund, but I can save it.
No, go ahead.
The ending balance is high, and we're leaving it high because we have a $2.2 million SIB loan payment in 2016. So to accommodate that payment next year, we left the fund balance high at the end of the year this year. So I just wanted to say that.
Did that answer your question?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
When Councilwoman Cook and I were doing our newbie training and driving around, one of the things that we had discussed with you was the addition of adding some capacity for another salt dome or expanding a salt dome. Is there any way we can start getting that in, or possibly get that into this budget? And we talk a lot about the $4 million. That's where I was looking at possibly getting some of that money to get this salt dome up so we can have some additional capacity. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we definitely have that in our CIP. At the FY Dome, we wanted to do some improvements at that location, and the purpose of that was to build a facility that we can have the drivers come to and have all the things they need at that location, because especially when you have a driver down on end and you need to bring them into the shop, I mean, you're talking minimum of a half hour just to get there and another half hour to get out, and that could easily stretch into an hour and a half. And that time involved is too much downtime for that driver down in his route. So we want to have a more central facility that's equipped to handle all that. So we do have money in there to start that, $125,000 to do some work at FY. But it's not a salt dome. But it does. We are looking at parking lot improvements. We want to have a facility where they can come in and have meals. Have some liquid capabilities with the brine and the geomelt, and have all that stuff right there, and have that a place that services them better.
I would think we may want to try that and see how much more efficient it makes us, and then come back if we need further recommendations.
So our discussion we had about adding capacity, we don't need that now.
No, absolutely we do. It's just the priority to get the slabs done really is where it ended up.
Okay.
Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, sir. Looking at another or a replacement of the asphalt hot patcher. This a second or just replacing?
For now, it would be a second trailer, but the current trailer has, occasionally it'll have issues, and we were not planning on putting any additional funds into it the next time it has a major breakdown, put it up for sale. This item is a great item to have in the wintertime because it allows us to make what would be a temporary patch, a permanent patch during the winter months.
What was the estimated life of the old one we purchased in 2008? Because I know Councilman Schwenker and myself were really excited when this came in, and then subsequently, Councilman Schwenker and myself have seen many asphalt repairs we've done that lasted a month. So this was supposed to mitigate that issue. So we didn't see we didn't see any asset to having this, because what we saw was failed patches. And now it's 6 years old at the most, and we're not putting no more money into it because it's not functioning properly.
That's correct. It's great when it's working, and this particular brand has a lot of problems. And
this is a different brand?
Yes.
And if I could jump in for a second, there is still a lot of cold mix repairs that occurs over the winter months. In fact, probably the primary repair that happens in the winter months is cold mix, which does not last nearly as long. The repairs that would be done with the hot mix are not as frequent, but when we do it that way, they do last longer. So I don't know the specifics of what you're talking about. I didn't want you to think that every repair we did in winter was a hot mix, when that's not the case. Most of them during winter are still a cold mix. But this does give us the capability to make a permanent repair.
Well, I'll ask the question.
Go ahead, please, because I'm thinking of how to ask.
If we have it, why aren't we using it instead of, you do a cold mix, you put it down and 2 days later it's out. If you put the hot mix down.
I think they are using it too. I just let Ken explain.
Yes. Some of the cold mix that we have tried in the last couple of years, it's a material that's supposed to be able to put down in a wet condition, and it's supposed to last.
Is it?
Some situations we do have success with it, and it's not the best.
Give me a percentage.
I don't have that information off the top of my head.
I'm not going to hold you.
It's probably a 50-50.
Okay. Mr. Feeney?
Ken, on your trailer, is that the trailer you guys have spent a lot of money re-welding?
The Spalding asphalt hot box?
Yeah.
Yes. And you mentioned if it was a different brand, we would bid that product out, and we would consider who bids on it and take everything under consideration, like our previous experiences with certain companies.
During the wintertime, I guess for our meeting Wednesday, if it's possible, during the wintertime, can you let us know the percentage of hot mix you put down and the percentage of cold mix you put down? I don't know if that can be, if it's a different product, it can be ciphered that easily or not, but from, I guess pretty much from the first quarter of the year, I guess, from January 1st to April, end of April, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
We can look at our records and see how much hot mix we purchased over the winter months and how much cold mix we purchased over the winter months.
And I guess I would like to see that it range 3 to 4 years in the past.
Okay.
Just so we can see where it's all going. And I would like to see this capital item brought back on Wednesday for discussion.
Okay. Anything else?
I just have 3 quick items in this
All right.
area. One of them is not just for streets, but for the other departments that have people that are on call. And currently, we pay $25 for people to be on call, which would mean that they're limited of where they can go. We tell them they shouldn't have anything to drink. They could be at a special event or something, but they have to be able to leave in 2 seconds flat. They used to be paid $100. I think $25 is awful low to limit people's mobility. So what is in the budget for those departments that are affected, streets would be one of them, is it back to the $100. So I just want to make sure you knew that. Secondly, I did want to let you know, not that Ken did a formal bid for me, but I asked him just to look at what it would cost to contract out snow removal, just to get a variance of what it would be like, and everything that he got, and he did a lot of work for me on this. It still seems like we're more efficient cost-wise, so just to let you know. And third, I just wanted to say, just think it's the last time we'll see Wade with hair after, if you get all this money, Wade.
I thought she was going somewhere else with that. But you gonna be pulling your hair out, are you? Mr. Hammond.
The on-call. The employees that are on call, do they volunteer for that? Are they, or is it?
As far as I know, they're assigned. Isn't it a rotation?
It's rotation.
It isn't
Yeah,
assigned. That's, I
assigned
want
rotation.
to clarify before we start moving money and
It
how
is
much we're going to pay them.
rotation. And it's not only streets, it's water, sewer,
Sure,
it's
there's a lot of
police,
departments that do that. I just didn't know if it was volunteer or if it was.
No, it's on a rotational basis.
That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Cover my time.
No, if you want to take my time, then that's, but
Well, and that's beside the point to me, but I just want to make sure,
it's not voluntary. No.
because there would be a difference if it's $25 to $100 was volunteer if it wasn't.
Mr. Schwenker.
I guess, Bonnie, just so we know, just to have the information, how many people are on call and, at a time. And I don't need it now, but if you
Okay,
get,
I'll put
if
it
you
on my
get that,
list.
because if we're going from 25 to 100, I mean, I can understand if we got 1 or 2 people on call, but if we got 20 people on call,
because you got to look at the different, but I'll get the number.
yeah, just so we kind of know what we're looking at
You
there.
got water, sewer, you got streets, you have
Building
police, you have
maintenance.
building maintenance, parks. So,
I mean, and it's not like there's 10 per department, it's probably 1, but I'll get it for you, Jeff. I don't wanna-
Have you heard feedback where people were complaining of the $25?
Well, they used to get 100, so of course, they're saying.
when we dropped it from 100 to 25, there were some complaints, yes.
I mean, like I
And-
said, you're limited. I mean, I don't think that's a lot of money to
Vicki?
say you're not going anywhere.
And if I can add too, when we changed, you used to get $100 when you were placed on call for that week. So you got it for, having to stay around town, not being able to drink. Now you get the 25 only if you get called in. So we have people that may have to stay around town, they can't drink, but if they don't get called in, they don't get paid anything. So this is going back to the $100 where, you get it for being on call, and then if you get called in, you're getting your call-in pay.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Bender?
I think we're on tab 30 now, which is the Waterbury Storm CID Fund. This is an old fund, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vicki, but this is the last year we have to put it in the budget?
That's correct.
Questions on the Waterbury Fund?
Move on to 31.
Move ahead.
So tab 31 is stormwater, and I'll have to ask Bonnie how she wants to handle.
You wanted to see those splits, so I thought now would be a good time to present those. Does that mean we get to do the show?
Go for it.
So, yeah, we have a presentation that's a shared presentation between stormwater, or Jeff, and
Parks.
Parks.
Yep. Thanks, Ken. Oh, you get to stay. That's right. I forgot. You're staying, Ken.
Jeff broke it.
Yeah, still 0-0.
Cindy, you gonna talk? I don't know if you want to sit there or you can sit next to Pam.
I figured.
I guess we'll move them.
That worked for 2 months straight.
I don't think I'll be able to see it.
And then I should have went back and I didn't. It was incredible.
And the score is 0-0.
Bottom half 0, council 0, or is it? That was a joke.
Did it come unplugged? It did. It came unplugged.
I want to go to that.
This way. It's in my pocket.
Split decision. I thought that said split decision.
It's an Ali fight.
There we go.
You starting this off, Jeff?
Sure, why not? That's okay with you.
Go for it.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Schupfer. I'm a senior project manager here. We put together a short presentation on the potential split of the stormwater and parks budget. As many of you may know, that stormwater is split pretty much, well, like I said, between parks and stormwater, and so we share out of it. And this is a short presentation to kind of talk about some of the different scenarios we've been looking at throughout this budget process. So that being said, Cindy and I teamed up to go through this. She'll talk about the park stuff, and I'll talk about the stormwater topics. Brief history, Proposition P was passed back in 2008 as a sales tax to fund parks and stormwater out of the general fund as a standalone thing. Before 2008, stormwater only got about $25,000 a year to do different projects, which certainly wasn't much. Today, the entire department, the stormwater maintenance, stormwater management, and projects are paid for out of this sales tax. And similarly, for the Parks Department, theirs was funded out of a property tax at roughly almost $2 million a year, and general fund, which is now completely funded by this sales tax. On the stormwater side of things, since we've passed this proposition, we've been able to do quite a bit of projects in the last about 5 years now or so. We've done 23 various projects between regular storm sewers in yards or streets, as well as creek bank projects, stabilization projects. We've spent roughly $4.5 million and benefited approximately 128 properties. And I say that term, that would be properties that are adjacent to the project that have seen the benefits or drain to these areas. And so as a result, We've stabilized many homes, many yards, repaired a lot of really big projects that residents just couldn't do. And this is all public infrastructure, not private work, but we've provided that capacity for them so that yards can now drain better, more efficiently, and therefore you can reap a quality of life benefit. One of the projects we did that was, I'll say, one of our poster childs of this tax was the Knowles Creek Bank stabilization that was between the Winghaven subdivision and the Knowles subdivision. There were several homes that were about 20 feet from their back door to the top of this 20-foot tall creek bank, and it was almost vertical. We have numerous pictures on that, and that stabilized that particular creek and actually helped save a lot of those homes and keep them stable as time goes on. And that project's been complete now for 2-3 years. And we still check on it every year and report on it and make sure that things are holding up. As a result, it's also reduced erosion especially on creeks like that, to help protect those areas so that we're not buying out homes long term. We can keep those homes there and those residents can continue to live there.
I'll jump in on this side. Since Prop P was passed, and let me just back up just a little bit. Prior to this Prop P, so we don't get Prop Ps confused, the property tax that was dedicated to Parks and Recreation and the assistance from the general fund pretty much allowed the Parks and Recreation Division to operate in a maintenance mode. We did no major projects at that time. We did not replace equipment. If we got a mower every few years, staff was elated. So obviously this trade-off was a good thing. I mean, it allows both funds to operate and do more than we ever were able to do prior to that. We have completed around 18 projects, close to 3.9, almost $4 million. I've listed them because, of course, none of our two projects are the same, so we're all over the place with, down at Sports Park, we completed the restroom and concession, as well as built the maintenance building. We have completed 3 stormwater type projects within the parks. We've had creek blockages at Dames and Sports more than once, and then at Canals Park we had a storm drain issue that, if you've been out there now, it looks a lot better than it did a few years ago. Of course, we completed Brendan's Playground and the splash pad. We did, on that project, we fundraised approximately half of that, so real close. The Westoff Plaza, the skate park, we've replaced several pavilions, the restrooms down at the bandstand at Civic, which are a big hit for people who got tired of the porta-johns that were there. Then we also put in the Fort Disc Golf Course last year. We did do the design for Civic and O'Day, and we'll figure out a way to fund those here in the future. And then we're in the process of the Ozzie Plaza final design and bidding that first phase out yet this year. So I can't put a value on how many people that has affected, because it affects anybody. If you've gone by Westoff Park and just seen the kiddos at Brendan's Playground or the participants at the skate park, it's amazing, the people that come out and use those. We also were able to start replacing some of our older equipment. We've probably bought around 15 new pieces of equipment, and I think right now we're at about 8 trucks that we've been able to replace, and we're just eating away at it. We can't do it all at once. The one thing we try to do is we try to balance between getting those things that benefit staff and help our operational efficiencies, and those things that benefit the residents. So we try to balance every year, so you'll never see an overload of projects one year and no equipment, and you'll never see a year where we ask only for equipment and nothing for the residents. So we always try to balance it.
And just to tag on to what Cindy said, same thing with stormwater, is we've been able to buy equipment, trucks, trailers, all kinds of different things to continue with maintenance and whatnot. And so there's a standalone set of equipment that stormwater has purchased that they use, a dump truck, some different equipment that those guys use every day. So that's all new things that this tax also was able to buy for stormwater. This sheet here, it might be a little hard to see from the distance, but this just gives a graphical representation of the percentage splits since, well, on the far left at 0 is 2008. 2009 then would be the next one, but the green bars represent the parks, and then the gray ones represent the stormwater. At the very far right, we have our projected 2015 number. I do believe that you've been made aware that we're seeking a 75-25% split, 25 being stormwater, of course. But you can see over time where those numbers have been. This current year, 2014, was a high for stormwater. That was in part to having a couple of large projects, a large creek bank stabilization project this year at Post Meadows. That was a little higher dollar value. And then we also had another one up in Royal Oaks as well. So we had negotiated last year to increase that percentage, which in turn lowered the parks as a result to meet that 100% total. Dollar amount wise, this sheet shows the actual numerical dollar amount in millions. Again, it's kind of hard to see, but it just gives a numerical value as to what it is. So from this year to last year, we're not raising that total dollar amount. I think it's only a 0.5% increase in the sales tax is what we're projected. So it's not a significant amount, but it does show, I believe the stormwater is about $1.3 million on that graph up there. I can't tell the storm or parks one offhand, but almost 4 million, like 3.9-ish it looks like. 3.59. So what on these next three slides, this is going to just show a graphical representation of some of the storm projects. This isn't the entire budget. This is just a snapshot of the projects that we're seeking. Up at the top, I point out that this is an original. The original is what I call, if we weren't seeking a 25%, this would have been what that percentage was basically earlier in the year before we even had those talks. Those percentages, the original percentages are right here on the top row. We would have sought almost 20%, almost 19% for the next 2 years to compensate for getting the higher percent this year. If we were to go with this original, we would only be seeking funds for these yellow projects. So this would be a design for both of these in next year, and then followed by construction in 2016. And then, as I've talked before, we have our priority list, so we just start at the highest ranked project. We go right on down the list. These next three would then be, further out. You can see that the very last one would be built, constructed, 60,000 construction in 2019. So 4 years from now, it would take, 5 projects in 4 years. Well, about 5 years, I guess, if you include everything. But this just shows how spread out that is. If we were to jump up to a 25% split, again, 25% we have carried out through 19. This gives us about an extra $270,000 a year for that 5%. It allows us not only these 2 projects that I mentioned on the previous slide, but we're able to start on 3 additional projects. So we can now work on 5 projects. These would be 5 design projects followed by 5 construction in 2016. And then again, continuing on the list, I don't know if you can see it, but these are actually light blue boxes. These boxes represent where that dollar amount would be under the original scenario. So not only are we able to add projects, but we're able to accelerate projects. So this Morrow Glen, for example, we're able to start it next year and build it hopefully in 16. If we didn't do that, it would be out here in 18 and 19. So we've advanced those projects up 3 years. And consequently, other projects are starting to show up on the radar as well. Another item that we added in the budget for the 25% scenario, and I believe your paperwork shows it as well, is this $50,000 increase on stormwater projects. This is mainly geared towards work orders, so mainly for the maintenance crews, so that if there's a bigger thing that they just can't handle in-house, they can use that money to help them. It doesn't pertain to our list of projects, our stormwater priority list. It's just to help out with work orders, give them an extra boost if there's just something that they just can't handle. And then on the third and final scenario that we looked at was a 30% split. Again, just like on the previous one, on the 25, we were looking at 5 projects. Now we're able to add 2 additional projects for a total of 7. So again, all design here and then construction the following year. All this gets accelerated up, so these projects here that are now getting pushed that much further ahead. We also added at the very bottom of this, you can see in the lower left there, an annual project similar to the annual concrete or the annual asphalt project, but this is actually a rotating. One year it would fall under a work order, one year it would fall under like a storm sewer pipelining type project, where you can bid out a $100,000 project to help get a lot of the heavy work orders taken care of, or an annual project where you can replace that old existing infrastructure. As a result of this surge of workload, it would, unlike the $4 million concrete, we would need a little help. So we put in for a little bit of like a temporary, either a project manager to help us through design, and then in 16 with this surge, a little bit of money to help with inspection, to have somebody available to help put an extra set of eyes out there in the field. So again, this is a 30% scenario that we carried 5 years into the future. It's not what we submitted on our budget, so you're not seeing these numbers in the paperwork you have today, but this is just one of the scenarios we did look at. Some pros and cons that we evaluated. Of course, the higher percent, the more we can get done. Approximately an extra $270,000 per year. That's a lot with some of these smaller backyard projects. You can really make a dent in our priority list. Our priority level 1 projects, those are the critical ones that we've identified and I've talked about before. It would really start getting that list chopped down rather than dragged out. And then therefore, our priority level 2 projects could be started sooner. Our current policy is not to start on a level 2 until our level 1s are complete. And so this just brings us that much closer to potentially starting those projects. And then of course it would provide an annual contract for handling maintenance to get our system, get some of our aging infrastructure replaced and upgraded as well. Again, some of the cons, it's a lot of work. We need some help. And when you're spreading yourself out, you do lose a little bit of inspection quality. So it would just be a challenge that we would have to overcome.
Okay. On the park side, I did take a little bit different approach because, again, our projects are a little different. I wanted to show you that these are the projects right now that the Parks Recreation Board and staff have prioritized out of the master plan that we completed in 2009. Not all of these were in the next 5 years, but they were all within the next 5 to 10 years. So there's a couple of them that you won't see on the charts when I get to that because they weren't in the next 5 years. I won't read through all of them. I think you're all capable of doing that. And this is just, in addition to projects, we also have the maintenance and equipment side. So on the vehicle and equipment, this is going to show you the amount of equipment we are still planning on buying over the next 5 years. And on the maintenance side, it is, the larger maintenance projects that we still would be doing over the next 5 years. Okay. This first scenario, and it gets a little smaller because the whole list is there, but again, the original split is what was presented last year during our capital improvements plan. So we have, it's right around an 80% split is what this demonstrates. You can see that the top line is vehicle, and there's like 175,000 there, and then equipment. We only have 2 projects really slated for next year, and that would be the completion of the Ozzie Smith Plaza at the threeplex. The restroom and concession would be next year, and also the replacement of the tennis courts. Okay. Actually, as we put in updated numbers, I had to move a few projects on out just to keep the fund balance. Vicki likes the Parks and Recreation Fund to be around a 1.5, 1.57 fund balance, so that's what we tried to do. So I did have to move a couple projects down in Sports Park out a few years, as well as we'd like to put some type of a new aqua feature at Alligators Creek at some point in time, and we've had to move that out as well. The 75% split, again, the shaded areas, as Jeff showed with theirs, as you increase money, they go forward. On ours, as you decrease, they go the other way. So where the blue is where those projects were originally intended to be, and they are now having to be moved out. So one of the ones that, and it's not really even a project that benefits anyone, it's more of just a maintenance plan, is resurfacing of the parking lots and roads throughout the parks. They have been, bottom line, neglected over the years because we just haven't had the money to do that. So we have a plan in place now where we can try to do one a year, but obviously the lower the percentage gets, the farther out that gets, and we may have to skip years to be able to do that. Again, you can see the projects that were moved out. One of the ones that I would highlight is the maintenance building in Fort Zumwalt Park. If you've taken a good look at that, it's that maintenance building came with the park in the 1970s, and it's too small, and 2, it is self-ventilating just because of the holes and whatnot that are in it, and it's not a structure that's worth putting a lot of monies into. We would like to replace it and move it down that cul-de-sac and get it away from the visibility of the Hild home and whatnot, and just really improve the looks of that area. I won't go through all of these. They're pretty self-explanatory, but like I said, you can see as we go down, projects move out, and if you go to the 70%, we move a lot more projects out. For next year, I will be honest with you, if the council will let us, we could keep the 2 projects we have in there for next year. What it affects is we have over the years been frugal enough with our spending that we have developed a fund balance that last year we started the reserve and we put $100,000 in that. When we started looking, after Prop P didn't pass this year, we started taking a good look at it, and actually that's when Vicki and I determined what does our fund balance need to be, and with the requirements of our fund balance, we can actually move a little over $1 million into that reserve to help us out. If we're at the 80%, it's about a 1.7. If it drops to the 70%, it's about a 1.1 that we can move into that reserve. So, it depends on how far you'll let us go into our fund balances to where we can go. Again, Jeff touched on a lot of this. The higher percentage is pretty obvious. We can do more projects, purchase more equipment. Obviously, the higher percentage gives us more that we can put into that reserve so that we can hopefully fund Civic and O'Day at some point in time. He talked about each 5% is an increase. Unfortunately for us, it's a decrease if it goes down, so it's right around the 270. I already touched on with a 70%, it does affect what we can allocate for that reserve, and if it stays at a 70%, it could affect what we can add to that over the next few years. And there are some of those projects that I was telling you weren't in the 5-year. They're out maybe between 5 and 10. Those are going to get pushed out even farther to 10 to 15, and even a little farther than that on some. So with that being said, Jeff or I would be happy to answer any questions.
Jeff, on the 75-25 split you have right now, which is proposed in the budget, you got the staff to do that?
Yes,
And if you go 70-30, you don't have the staff to do it?
that's correct. We'd need some help.
Mr. Hinman?
Thank you. Well, I brought it up mainly because I was looking at what was originally budgeted, and Mr. Schutman brought it up correctly, that it was negotiated at budget time to change those. And what I would like to see is what was projected last year when we did the split and changed it and gave more to stormwater, that we would put it at the 80% for parks this year, and then going forward 75%, and not doing a two-year hit for stormwater, but just doing 1 year to kind of level out what last year was. And again, that's what was put in plan last year, and that's what I'd like to see this year.
You just want to see last year what was proposed?
For this year, an 80% split for this year.
Right. And what was proposed and
then ongoing a 75-25, kind of what they had projected, but I think next year you even had an 80-20 for
Right, there was 2
2016
years
also.
where it was close to that. And it is something that, and most of you guys know this, that when that bond was passed, the council didn't want to dictate a set number, because there are times when it needs to go up for one or the other or go down. So I think we both realize that, or both divisions do, so.
And the second part of that is, you know, Parks has done a very good job trying to put money away, as his council had asked both Parks and the police department to do that. And they were able to do that even with the split that they've got. And I think if we went with the 80-20, they would be able to complete some of the projects that have been put off for a few years in order to take care of the stormwater issues. Thanks.
Mr. Pepper?
Mr. Hammond was up first.
Okay, Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. I disagreed then about the council not setting a percentage for a long time, and I disagree with it now. Just for the simple fact that both these departments need to be able to plan their budgets, a 5- and 10-year plan. If they get 20% this year and 25% next year and then 25% next year and then 20%, you cannot plan long-range projects that way. With that being said, I appreciate the plannings of, I get X amount, we can do this. But as we all know, every council has the ability of drastically changing that number. So what I don't want to see happening, this is why I like to see a set number all the way across the board. I don't want to see us in the middle of a project and the next council decides, well, you know what? I want something more important over here in the park, so let's take some down. He's stuck in the middle of a halfway done project, scrambling for money to get it done. That's why I believe we need to set 80-20, 75-25. Pick a number. I don't care what it is, but they be able to plan their projects out for 5 to 10 years, and that number needs to hold steady. That's the only way you can properly plan a budget and plan projects, is with a steady number.
And I agree with that, and, you know, it still has to be, if you still do 70, 80, 20, 75, 25, whatever it is, but still there are emergencies that come up.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's when either Parks or Stormwater's got to come to this council or future councils and say, look, we understand, but, you know, in this subdivision, we have a major problem that we need to get taken care of.
And that's when their planning needs to absorb a contingency plan also.
Okay.
That those emergency funds need to still be in there.
Okay. You done?
That's it.
Mr. Pepper?
Jeff, the one thing that and I'm going to reiterate this, I see all of these nice projects and large dollar value projects. What I'm concerned about, day in and day out, and I keep getting phone calls on them, are the smaller projects that they tend to be ignored. People's yards are getting washed away. All it would take is the repurposing of the concrete, drop it in. It might cost $3,000 us, maybe even less. Drop it in, make it happen. I've got 3 places right now that have been on the list for 4 years that I know of. Where's the money for those?
Sure.
To stop them from getting to the point of being a big project.
Yeah, and there's a couple of avenues. If it's minor maintenance, then our in-house staff like if it's a damaged inlet or a broken pipe, then our in-house staff can address it. That's one avenue. We also have our 50/50 program, which on the budget sheets, it's called the community sharing line item. We have a recurring $20,000 amount for that. That's an application process that the public fill out, and then they submit it to us to qualify, basically. We have currently, we have 7 outstanding 50/50 applicants. They either haven't filled out all the paperwork, or they're saving up their 50%, or there's various reasons. We have completed one earlier this year, but we're just waiting on the
Was that one in
residents.
Avondale?
What's that?
Was that the one in Avondale?
It was the one down in, offhand, I don't remember the street. I think it's, but I can look it up. I've got the list right here. It's just a matter of finding it here, but.
There's one over in Calumet that I know myself, I walked with Steve Bender down through there and identified this, and nothing is being done about it.
Yeah, and then again too, go ahead.
We have completed 2 in Avondale, and there's a third one. I think the one that you're mentioning, we've completed this year in the 50/50 program.
Okay. But, I mean, these are the things, it's the smaller ones
Yeah.
that they tend to get swept aside until all of a sudden they become major.
Well, and that's a very good point. And like I mentioned, our current policy is to focus on the level 1 projects. And there's a certain criteria that they have to meet to become a level 1. But just like you said, a smaller project could become a level 1 after a certain amount of time has passed. But we have not been able to spend the funds on a level 2 project. Our cost share 50/50 is what we call a level 3 project. They can come up any time if the people are willing to pay their 50%. But we're just not seeing a huge.
I'm just wondering on that 50/50, and maybe it's a discussion for another time, but why we are asking residents to pay to fix a problem that wasn't theirs in the first place. It's the responsibility of the city, period. I still haven't got that straight in my mind, but we can discuss that later.
Sure.
Mr. Howe?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I like the chart where you showed what the percentages would have been if you wouldn't have negotiated what they came up to. That was kind of nice to see that. And like you said, you're proposing the 75-25. You feel that that's doable. As the mayor quoted, if you're going any more than that, you're not going to have the personnel, you don't feel. So I have no problem with the 75-25 myself.
Mr. Feeney?
Jeff, where would we be able to borrow this person for it, or are we talking about hiring another person if we go to 30?
Likely either hiring a consultant, whether it be one of our, we'd have to design the projects anyway. We could probably amend their contract to have engineering management services, and then same thing with construction. We'll do that periodically on road projects, bigger road projects too, where the consultant can serve to help oversee some aspects of inspection.
So we're just adding it to the project, the cost of the person?
Right. Not a staff member, not a full-time, and most likely not a temp agency either. It would be
I hope not. Thank you.
Mr. Schwenker?
Both of you two have hashed this out. Apparently, it looks like you get along very well.
They're not beating each other up over there.
They're wearing the same colored shirts anyway.
I guess on stormwater, how much are we putting back in reserves there?
It's about $500,000 a year is our goal. This first year, if you look at the sheet, in 2015, it's a very high dollar amount. And I don't know if you have the CIP, but if you look down the road, it starts getting closer to that goal.
Vicki, you have that number? Or Bonnie?
Yeah, and you're actually speaking of the reserve fund that we have?
I'm talking about with this split, with the 75, where Cindy says she's trying to put back I ain't for sure what you said, 1.3 million.
1.5 is the average.
1.5 is average. What is stormwater putting back? Or are we?
Yeah, with stormwater, I don't think the goal is to build that fund balance. We have a fund balance, and we keep it right now about $1 million, which is probably a little higher than what they need for operating, but with stormwater, it's a little riskier, so we could have an emergency project that we have to do. So they're more maintaining the fund balance and spending the funds as they come in on the stormwater projects.
So you don't really want to see it yourself. You don't really want to see big reserves there.
Yeah, I don't think there's a need in this fund, because if they have the money, they're going to apply it to projects, where with parks, they have the larger dollar projects that, we went out to, try and bond. So they're trying to save those funds, so in the future, if they needed to pay for a larger project, they can do that without bonding it.
I mean, again, I agree with Councilman Howell. I think you two worked it out, unless you two would sit here and tell us this isn't the way we want it. I want 30, I want 80. I was looking for a 70-30 split, but I don't like the idea of the $50,000 going towards paying somebody to, I don't like that. I'm happy with the 75-25, and it seems like you guys are happy with it.
Mr. Lucas?
I know I was here when we were only doing about $25,000 for stormwater. There was nothing really getting done. So I know that some of these projects are old. I mean, they've been there for a while. What's the oldest project you currently have that you on your schedule to be done?
Oh, let's see here. And again, it could be further down the list. We do have a couple here. One of our priority level 2 projects, so it's not even on the radar yet, is from 2007. So
we have projects that are 8-10 years old already on,
there's
on
another
the list.
2008. There's a 2005 down in Twin Chimneys. Another 2009. A 2006.
Yeah, I knew we had some that were hanging out there, and that doesn't even include. That's not even looking at some of the small ones that we haven't even. It's not even on radar yet. I'm comfortable with the 75-25. I've said it before. I wish we'd give 100% to parks and had an equal fund to still maintain the stormwater it is, but reality is what reality is, and. I know some of these big projects we've done, while you say it's affected a number of properties that have seen that doesn't even take the residual effects of further downstream or further upstream that it's helping relieve some of those properties that weren't even adjacent to some of the creek banks that we've done. So it's one of those things that we have to do. We don't have any choice. So thank you.
Well, as I said, we don't need to make the decision on the decision tonight. I think Mr. Hinman's going to make his motion next Wednesday night, and then where the chips fall, they fall. So, Mr. Hinman.
Just the final thing again, and, like I said, this is what, with the compromise they made last year, this was the deal that this council and staff came up with, was to come up with the 80-20 split, and I think we need to go with what you guys had decided and talked about last year on it, instead of going back on your word. Thank you.
Ow! Okay.
I want to see that tape.
Mr. Hammond?
Don't they need to have some kind of idea of where we're leaning to present an actual budget
Well,
the final pieces on Wednesday?
I think they've heard, and if they're hearing the same thing I'm hearing, it's one of these numbers?
Right.
75-25.
80-20.
75.
So, but I think they got the numbers for 70-30, they got the numbers for 75-25.
Yeah, we have them for all three.
They have the number for 80-20. So they know in their budget,
We can
whatever
plug 'em.
split it is, they already have that in. So on, as I said, Wednesday is just our last final. We don't hear the budget, for first reading until November. So, they're probably looking at everybody else going, where's it going to go? And it's like this. And I really don't want to take a vote tonight since Rose is not here.
Rose says 80-20. No, she said 75.
We know what she wants. 80-20.
I made her commit last time, remember?
Okay.
I made her commit too.
He's 73rd.
So,
Actually.
we'll vote Wednesday.
Just real quick, I just wanted to say, these guys brought the 3 scenarios to me, so if you want to blame somebody, it's me, on the 75-25, and I came down to the hiring of temporary did not make any sense to me, because I've seen it too many times where temporary goes on for 30 years. And you always have an excuse to keep them. I think the other thing that's important, this has been a bad year, at least since I've been here, with a lot of rain. And if you've never, I went with Mr. Feeney, I went with Debbie Cook, I've heard Bob Howell, I've talked to these people. If you've never had your home flooded, we have got to do something. It's a horrible, horrible thing. We had, Bob, you had your neighbor 3 cars flooded out.
Unbelievable.
And I know Cindy doesn't want to hear it, but parks are so important in this community. But I had a gentleman, 92 years old, call me this week, almost in tears. 6 times he's flooded out. And he's on this list for design. So, I mean, we got to help these people.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's 3-2.
Well, before we do that, are we doing the stormwater fund, or is that just? Well, what I'm saying is this was just a presentation. If you want to look at
to quickly do the budget.
the budget side of stormwater fund, then we can take a break. Is that okay with everybody?
3-2.
3-2 Cardinals.
3-2 Cardinals?
Oh, Debbie's down there. I didn't even.
I'm not sure
Who's
there's
doing-
really anything.
I'll put it to you this way. Anybody got any questions on the stormwater?
There really isn't anything
Budget.
major in here.
No, I think you covered it in the
The presentation covered it for me.
Yeah.
Me too.
Capital.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jeff.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah, great presentation, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Hinman makes a motion for a 15-minute break.
Second Hammond.
Second by Councilman Pepper. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to reconvene. Motion by Councilman Finney, second by Councilman
mind
Hinman.
ya.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chief, you're up.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity. We're here to discuss the proposed 2015 Police Department budget. A couple of things. I just give you just a quick overview because we want to try to make this as painless for the chief as possible. But we start our budget process back in May. Actually, if you really think about it, after the first of the year, we pretty much start looking at where the budget is and where we're going, and we monitor it all the time. But as far as the proposed budget, we start in May, and then we have our own internal meetings before we even meet with the city administrator and city staff, and then go through it. Just so you know, if you look, that our proposed 2015 budget is, overall, we've cut it back over 10% from the previous years. And some of the highlights of that is we were able to eliminate some of the cost with the new radio system that's going to go in. We're not online yet. We're due to go online in a couple weeks. But with the new system, we could eliminate the maintenance cost for that because it'll be under warranty the first year. We have a number of things. We still have some capital items, the 2 capital items. The one is the sirens, which is an ongoing program for the last 3 years, and will go into even the 2016 budget of replacing our outdated sirens. So after following next year, we'll be completely replaced all of the sirens within the city. But based on those figures, we did our own cuts, and then we additionally were cut again when we sat down with the city, with city administrator. That would be her. And just so you know, our vehicles, we cut those back to only replacing 8 of the patrol vehicles that are out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also, and those are the only 2 capital costs. The operating costs, as I said, we made some cuts in that we have overall come down over 10% cuts, but there's some significant cuts in the various line items. For instance, and I won't go through them all, but for instance,
charges for contract services is down almost 40%. Equipment repair and maintenance, and that had to do with that, what I indicated, we'll have the new radios will be under warranty is almost 40%. Office supplies, things like that. Cleaning supplies, we were able to reduce by 50% because we bought a number of items under this year's budget that we believe that will carry us over through next year. But I don't want to go through, I would rather just give you that overview of the work that we've put in so far to be able to answer some questions for everybody tonight. So I'll just leave it at that, and we can go through and we can start talking.
And the 3 sirens that you're doing this year will be at Mexico and Barrington, West Terra and Genneman, World Drive at MEMC, right?
That is correct. I don't have that in front of me, but we do have them listed on that, on the sheet in your packet.
Right.
Mayor, the Noust one, where was that, when was that paid for? That was actually, the county took care of the one that was struck by the, in the automobile accident. Yes, that was replaced by the county. Thank you. You're welcome.
And in 2016, the sirens are Highway K and O'Fallon Road, North Main and Tom Ginevra. So that's just 2 of them, right?
And that'll be the last 2.
Okay. Mr. Henman.
Thank you. Chief, with all of the SROs we have out there, is there a cost sharing through the school district for that, or do we cover that whole cost, and where do we find that in the budget?
That should be under the personnel cost, and there is a ongoing agreement with the Fort Zumwalt School District where it's not, they don't cover the full cost. We, right off the top of my head, Kyle, do you remember the breakdown on that, or John in the back?
75%. Wentzville too.
Wentzville also?
Wentzville also, right?
Yes, in the same way now with the new Wentzville schools out there, the high school and the elementary school out there. But the elementary school with the SR is just a DARE officers that handle that, our DARE pro.
Yep.
Vicki?
Yeah, those, it's reimbursed at 50% of the 9 months during the school year, and the revenue goes into intergovernmental revenue in the general fund. So it's 100% of the cost is in the expense account, and then the revenue is recorded at 100% in the revenue line item.
Thank you.
And that was actually less, and Mayor Hennessy and myself went to the school board 2 years ago and sat with them, explaining to them that we needed more, and they generously stepped up to the plate and brought it up to the 50%.
And when Liberty came on board, that's what we had asked Wentzville School District also to step up for the SROs. They did.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hammond?
I thought this year at Liberty, we took on the full cost of that. I thought.
No.
No, they're paying a partial. This is that they asked that they would pay the same as the Fort Zumwalt School District. Okay. We asked them to cover the full cost of it, but they said no.
Okay. Any other questions on police? Mr. Pepper?
Chief, I was able to talk to Vicki and about a question I had earlier concerning how the overtime is calculated and forecasted. I'm still extremely concerned about the consistent rise in overtime coming up to the budgeted here at $642,000 in overtime itself. With changes in management practices, I would expect that some of that overtime could be negated through the use of PTO compensation, getting, I guess, closer to fully staffed, where we have been behind the last couple of years, if I remember right, short on being fully staffed. So therefore, I would like to see this cut by $200,000 in overtime, but I would expect that to happen through management practices using, PTO. If somebody starts to get to a point of overtime, that you can give them PTO to negate the overtime at this point. Hopefully during this year, you can, through your staff, you can actually make that happen and show a major reduction in those expenses. Because I think those expenses could be better utilized in, faster replacement of equipment, vests, whatever you guys need out there could make it happen a whole hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Councilman, I don't disagree with you, and of course, when you indicate about the costs have increased, of course, as if you recall the previous discussions we've had with the council, the majority of the overtime that the police department paid was out on holiday pay, and it was a citywide thing. Now, as everyone should know by now, we're going to, on January 10th, we're going to begin go to 12-hour shifts. Right now, I can't. You got a ballpark figure there of $200,000. I can't really confidently say that we can reduce overtime by that amount, but our plans are, and we've discussed it, is to do just what you said, is to flex some of that overtime hours in that we should be able to reduce it. In addition to some of the things that are under discussion now about the citywide benefits on holiday pay and things like that. So the projected decrease, I'm just not confident in saying how much it would be at this point, but we do expect to have some reduction in our overtime payments.
I would like to see you set that as a goal. Is it attainable? I think you could probably come close to it. Again, through, I guess what you and I and the rest of the staff know, that it can be done through, through some creative management practices that will not hurt any of the troops.
Yeah, I don't, again, I'm not, please don't take what I'm saying as a disagreement. Your term creative and I would say logical management practices, but yes, we plan on working very hard to do that. Again, I'm just concerned about putting a dollar figure on it at this point. Maybe after the first quarter. Of course, the first quarter is usually the wintertime, season that it isn't as busy as it gets into. But we might be able to say, well, this is what we've done so far. So we'll just we plan on monitoring it. I think everyone on the council knows that. After every pay period, I get a breakdown of the overtime hours and where it was spent at and things like that. So this isn't a matter that we look at overtime once a year at budget time. We do this after every pay period. And the division commanders, Captains Gray and Nesky, we look at that constantly, and Major Kelly has all those figures also. But I have those figures with me after every pay period of what we put in for overtime and what was spent.
Well, I know with some of the changes that are going on, let's say I would like to see you come back in 6 months and let us know how effective some of the different things and how you've accomplished them. I think that would be. I'm
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, that's fine. No, and I appreciate you guys' efforts in trying to do this, because, as you're well aware, this has been a thorn in quite a few different council people's side over the years.
Wrong. Your side, Jimmy.
No, over some council people.
We're the ones that count.
I do have the
floor. Never mind. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Mr. Lucas.
I'm sorry.
Chief, the motorcycles, do we lease those, or are those purchased like our vehicles? Now, I thought those were.
I think some time ago, before I was here, you did some lease arrangement or something. But no, those are purchased.
Those are purchased like vehicles. Okay.
And then when they need to be replaced, I think we replaced 2 in last year's budget. And we trade them in. We trade them in.
That's fine. I just knew we had at least them at
I think there was
time.
at least
Just
from my experience, not with O'Fallon, but before I got here, many of the Harley Davidson dealers are getting away from that lease arrangement with the police departments, because they find that on their trade-ins, those police motorcycles have very good resale value, because it says Harley Davidson Police on the air cleaner side. So a lot of people want to buy those.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Howe.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Jimmy, I do apologize for interrupting you. That was very rude of me. I do apologize. But I think that with the new things that are happening, which you're well aware of, the new things that are going on with the department, the different arrangements that are going on, like the chief said, he's going to keep us up to date. we're going to know where it's going. To sit here and try to tell the gentleman you want $200,000 cut out of overtime, I mean, that's, my opinion, that's pretty hard to say, yeah, I'm going to do that for you. But I think you're well aware of the changes that are going to start, and I'm sure, like he said, he's going to keep us updated, and we'll see where it goes from there, okay?
Well, Mr. Howell, if
Yes,
I may.
go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Yeah, you are chair, and I need your permission, okay?
No.
No, I said that was my goal. I would like to see $200,000 reduction. I didn't demand that from the chief.
Okay.
But I said that was my goal. I'd like to see, if it comes in at 150, I'd be ecstatic, okay? But it would mean that they would have extra money to be able to do more.
Sure.
There.
Sure.
Debbie?
Thank you. I know you're still trying to hire more officers, correct?
Well, we were up to strength for about 15 minutes. I apologize. Right now, we have 2 openings. An officer we just were notified that got a federal job, so that brought us down to 2. But we were up to strength before we had 2 officers just leave.
But by hiring more officers, in turn, would reduce your overtime. Is there?
Well, not necessarily, because as more officers are working, more officers have to go to court, more officers, and that includes overtime dollars. What we would hope with the new changes that we're going to make after the first of the year, that we can manage our overtime in a way to be able to reduce some of these numbers. However, let me caution everybody, and I just must do this, so I can always say to you, I told you so, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but one major event, one major incident could affect all of this that I'm talking to you about now. So,
absolutely.
And I'm just this job, you just never know. You just never know. So,
Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. Chief, when this year wraps up and you get the final number of dollars spent on overtime, I think we would all like to, I would like to see those numbers. But what I'd also like to see is what percentage of those dollars are reimbursed from
grants,
from the drug task force, from sobriety checkpoints, all those different things. What percentage of that, and you can lump it all up in one number, of the overtime that is reimbursed, overtime spent in courts, and overtime that we require officers to be at festivals during holidays and stuff like that. That's a large part of our overtime number. I'm not going to say a majority, but a large part of our overtime number. Those numbers, even with a shift change, is not going to change. They're still going to have to go to court. Court isn't always on a day that they're working, and if we got a couple of guys in court, we need to cover them somewhere else to keep streets on patrol. The festivals aren't changing, and the reimbursements aren't going to change. So those are going to be not solid numbers, but you can probably count on those numbers to be pretty close from year to year. So when these numbers do come at the end of the year, I would like to see that breakdown of what is actual overtime, and you can lump all the other courts, festivals, and reimbursements into another percentage for us. I would appreciate that.
Certainly. And I would call on Vicki to help us with that. I have some numbers, the hours, not the dollars.
I understand.
So I can tell you to date, because we had a check today, knowing as we were coming into these meetings, of what we are compared to last year. And when you said it's an increase, if you can project out, I don't see an increase here, but we still have a number of holidays still to come. So it could work out to be, and it looks to be about on the same par.
Thank you. That's all I want.
But we can, at the end of the year, give you a figure of probably Captain Gray's behind me going, "Oh God!" But
how'd you know?
I'm like a typical father. I got eyes in the back of my head. But we can get that working with finance to get you those numbers, especially those what you're saying, the grant that gets reimbursed for our overtime hours that we work. So yeah, we would have that.
And then, like I said, all of our festivals, because we know, like Freedom Heritage Fest, we got quite a few police officers work, and we still got them patrolling the streets too. So there's a lot of overtime being spent on those. Any festival that we do and stuff like that.
Plus, it lands on a holiday. One of the days it lands
exactly.
on a holiday.
Exactly my point. Thank you,
Mr. Pepper.
Basically, what I was asking the chief on this, and I agree with Councilman Hammond. What I'm looking primarily at is non-event driven overtime. SWAT has to go out; they have to do it. You got all your other different investigative, late calls, all that. I have no issues with that. It's the non-event driven overtime that has me concerned.
Yeah.
That's all.
Any other
Thank you.
questions on the police budget? Mr. Schwanker?
And I guess just to follow up with what John asked for, I believe I've been asking for that for almost 2 years now, of that breakdown, and I've never gotten it.
I've always had it, Councilman. I don't recall any requests coming through, but I have this at every council meeting with me. And at the end of the year, it's there. So if you've asked for it, I didn't get.
This afternoon.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
And,
I know the last couple of years, I've always asked for a breakdown through budget. I always said that I wanted what John says, because this number always seems so huge, but you know, we need something sent to us. I mean, you guys may have it, but it's never sent us at the end saying out of the 600,000, 300,000 was grant money brought back. I've asked for that the last 2 years through budgets.
I think you've asked that of the previous city administrator.
Right, and
I will get it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because we've never received that, and I think that would relieve a lot of the tension that everybody always sees the overtime. If we see the breakdown, then we'll understand it a little bit more.
You know, just to give you an idea, I'm just glancing down here, of all of the 2013 numbers, like I say, I have it with me. In 2013, the final total was 7,317 hours of overtime. Now that's grant, everything in there. And out of that figure, 4,493, almost 4,500 of the 7,300 was holiday pay. So I have that. I always did have it, and I apologize. I guess your request didn't get to me.
It just never came to us.
I got you. Okay.
All right. Any other questions on the police budget? Seeing none.
Thank you, Bruce.
Training fund.
Thank you very much.
You got police training fund, inmate security.
No, I figure it was a success. I'm getting out of it.
I think we're going to run, but
I'm gonna turn it over to Kyle on to give you the update on the
The training fund, security fund? I mean, there's not much to it. I mean,
yeah, it's.
yeah, I mean, the police training fund is set up from the court revenue on tickets that are written.
Questions on the police training fund? Move on.
See how good that was?
See that? Have you do this other one.
The inmate security fund, we show a budget of 18,600. Some of the things, like in the past, if you'll recall, last year we budgeted for a juvenile toilet that we replaced. The inmate security fund, we can only use that money for those items in building maintenance stuff that covers and deals with prisoners. So there's nothing else we can do other than feed prisoners, repair our jail facility, buy jumpsuits, those type of items for anything related prisoner-wise.
And the income from that comes from where?
It comes from the courts and their fines.
Mr. Pepper?
I was looking at it. Please explain to me what biometric verification fees are.
Oh, thanks, Chief.
Mr. Chappell?
That was the original state statute, what it was actually originated. That was the $2 fee when it started 8 years ago or so. Then they changed it to inmate security because people were, originally you had to get some unique identifier, either a fingerprint scan or a retina scan or something. That was the original expense. Then after that it could be used for jail expenses. That's why it was biometric verification fee. Now it's changed to inmate security fee.
Should we move that ordinance about plain language ordinance over to the bookkeeping?
Number 36. Let's go. Next.
Any other questions? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Right?
Cindy, Craig, Bill.
Need some help with your books and stuff.
10 times. Less than an hour. On a good day.
Tab 36. through 39.
Yes. We're starting off with the Recreation Fund. I won't spend a whole lot of time because I think you heard enough from me earlier, but one thing I want to bring to your attention is you probably have noticed an increase in the transfer out to the Renaud Spirit Center. I will touch more on that when we talk about the Renaud Spirit Center, but I wanted to bring that to your attention now. Craig's going to cover a couple items in revenues and then expenses for recreation. Bill will cover a few things in parks expenses, and then we'll cover capital. So with that, Craig?
Just wanted to touch base on day camps. Day camp revenue has gone down quite a bit because we're moving our venue for day camps to our Civic Hall Annex, which a lot of you may know is the old water and sewer building. We're doing this. We feel it's a better location if it's a more permanent day camp than to leave it in Westhoff Park. There's some concerns that we have at Westhoff. And really, I think that's it.
The other one on revenues is the one-day events, and actually, I'm going to have communications real quick show you a quick video on an event we would like to try and bring to O'Fallon next year. It's called Slide the City. So, guys, if you you guys got to see it. You
Absolutely, I'm in. It's better than a zip line.
Well, we do have to have a dress code.
Yeah, Jeff brought this to us, so
You have to
Jeff
have what?
gets the first slide.
A dress code. Oh, this is a free country.
Yeah.
David Letterman.
Uh-oh.
Yes, it was.
Okay. I didn't know how to explain it. The video does a lot better. But it is actually, it's the length of 3 football fields. You do have to have a 4-lane road to put it on. There has to be a certain grade to that. So right now, all we can do is if the council is okay with us pursuing it, because it's $30,000 roughly to bring that here. Now, you do charge people, and, we should be able to make that back, but Marcia and Craig's staff will work together on this. They can reach out to the company. There's no guarantees. It's a very new thing. It is, Kansas City's the closest it's been. There's nobody in this area that's had it, so we would love to be the first ones to have it in this area, but it's going to take a lot of work, and we're shooting for later in July, just because we know it'll be hot then. The one thing, and Bonnie had brought this up as our concern, is what if we get a rain day in the middle of July, which it does happen. And I said, well, that would be something we would work out long in advance, and if we don't get a comfort level on a good rain date clause or something, then we wouldn't do it. But anyway.
Megan's Plaza to Mexico Road, sir.
And you're looking at?
Right now, we're looking at possibly Mexico Road in front of West High School. We'd have the parking lot of West High School. We think we could set it up where we wouldn't impact too many subdivisions, because like I said, it's the length of 3 football fields, so.
About that now.
Mr. Hammond?
Simple suggestion, Freedom Heritage Fest. You already got a road that's closed off.
We had talked about that, except if we put it on TRU's Boulevard, now we've totally cut into our access in and out of the festival grounds, so.
We can work it out for a day.
I don't know, we can, I mean, we haven't really decided for sure where or when, but it's just something, that it would be a one-time thing.
People are there already.
Because like I said, they only have a couple of these, so they're just now starting to go around.
Mr. Howell?
I think that's a great idea, Councilman Hammond. I mean, you could put that on the one side of the road and still have the shuttle traffic on the other side.
Well, you have to have 4 lanes, because it takes up the 2 center lanes, and then you have to have your outside lanes for.
4 with a turn lane then?
Yeah, people going up and down, access at both ends.
Have anything else where you got?
Cross TRUs.
We can figure it out.
I don't know, I mean, we can look at options if you'd like us to
maybe-
steer towards Heritage and Freedom Fest, we can, but I wouldn't guarantee that it'll end up on that day.
Like
We can
John
just look
said,
at
you're already
options.
going to have the hundreds of thousands of people there, you know, I mean.
There is a request for this, so there's an application process, so I think it kind of is based on what's, what they're committed to.
Okay.
We may not be able to pick the date. They may
Okay.
tell us the date.
Okay,
Plus, I
any,
think
go ahead.
You're not necessarily they choose you. I mean,
Right, so it's like a bid
like
process.
Hartford's
so
been
we-
on a list for a long time, so.
They know who we are? City of O'Fallon, the 7th largest.
Well, we're going to try to educate them on who we are, but
Okay.
there's no guarantees.
Just curious, do you know what they do charge per person to ride
It
it?
varies. They usually, and each city can kind of do their own thing. You can do like a $15 for a one-time slide, or you can do $30, $40 and you can slide all day long type thing. So it would
Okay.
we would set those prices. And the one thing is, it's geared towards, you have to be so tall. That doesn't sound right.
2 different
sorry.
options there.
So tall to be able to do this. So obviously, we would
That's the
need to
$50.
provide something for the younger kiddos to do aquatic base too, because they wouldn't be able to go down this. So to make it family oriented. But anyway, we wanted to show it to you. If you like it, we'll pursue it. If you don't like it, we'll not pursue it.
Great idea.
Mr. Swanker?
I think it's worth exploring, but I think Councilman Hammond probably had the best idea, even though you're saying you can't get a date. Even though Councilman Howell, myself, and Feeney and Cook would love to have it in Mexico Road, I don't think that to shut the road down like that would not work. You'd almost have to bring it to, I know you may not be able to do it on the 4th, but the road over there where Ullman Road Bank is, and the gas station going down towards
that way.
79, because you're affecting nobody. You would have to find a road that's really not going to affect nobody. Although Mexico Road would be a very fun road to have it on, I would not want to affect businesses and people to that extent. I think you would have to find a road like where Bank of Old Monroe is, and there where there's nothing on either side. You would have to find a road like that you're not affecting
You have to
anybody.
have certain grades. So our options will be limited, and until we get a hold of them and really find out what all the criteria is, we don't know. We just
Yeah.
thought it was interesting. Like I said,
Yeah,
Jeff kind of
yeah.
tossed us the YouTube video, and it was like, that would
Yeah, I
be
think
awesome.
it'd be neat to pursue, but I would have a hard time supporting anything that would affect blocking any kind of road. It would have to be, we would have to have a road that's not going to really affect anybody. The only
That
one
wouldn't bother
can
me.
think
I
of
could walk,
offhand is
I could
that-
walk out of my backyard, so could you.
Right.
So could Debbie.
But I'd have a lot of people walking to my door too, telling me and Bob
Okay.
about it.
Mr. Hinman?
Thank you. I think it's a great idea. I actually do like the idea of on Mexico Road. If I had a business there, it's not going to close down your business. It's going to bring 5,000 people to your business in the neighborhood. I think it's a great deal for it. You could do it on Mexico Road and block off those subdivisions, but because they all have alternative access besides Mexico Road. So I think it's a great idea to have it there.
Actually, you know, the thing is, you're not blocking off all those subdivisions. You're probably blocking off from Brighton Point,
Right.
farther down.
Right.
I think that's all the farther, I mean, everything.
And they
east,
have
you're
access,
not-
but
you're
you
not-
got Rizzo's, Turtle Creek Pub and Grill, you got all them businesses there. There'd be no cars would be allowed on that road.
Look at the foot traffic.
So it would be foot traffic only.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, that places would be packed.
They would have to agree to it.
Yep. Okay,
Okay, moving right
hold
along.
on, we got one more, Mr. Howell.
Can you tell we're excited about this thing? I still
We'll
want to
work
go
on it.
back to the Heritage and Freedom Fest, if possible.
Yeah, we'll look
And
at
like
that
Councilman Hammond said, we could take the road from where it's blocked off now, all the way up to 70, and shut the rest of that road off.
No, not to 70.
79. Go the
Right.
other way.
Oh, yeah, the other, yeah, that's.
Right, no,
that's what I
you know, from where the park entrance is, I mean, since the park is used for vendor shuttles now, that's the only thing coming out of there. There's really not many other, you know, all the shuttles, most shuttles come from TR Hughes. You go from the park entrance up the other direction, if the grade's right, we'll move that trash truck that stinks. That's really much the only thing that parks there all the time. And you got a 4-lane road wide open that's not affecting anybody, and I think any past videos of our past Freedom and Heritage Fest that you send with the application will sell itself. If they're interested in O'Fallon, that's going to seal it.
Okay. Last question, Mr. Lucas.
Only question I had was, you said that the, one of the requirements is the grade of the road.
Right.
Is it supposed to be flat, or is it
It's gotta
designed
have
to
a, it's got to have a slope, but it can't have too much of a slope, or else you'll be wiping.
Well, I'd love to have it on TR Hughes Boulevard. I don't know from the intersection that Mr. Schwanker's talking about back down, I don't know if there's enough grade there, but there is a minimal amount of inconvenience there, and you do still have the high schools there that you could probably get parking in July at, but.
Well, and I think you guys have heard what most of the council said.
Okay.
You know,
Pursue it
and see what comes back as.
Tab 37 is recreation expenses.
Just wanted to mention a couple spots here. Of course, day camps, the expenses will also go down because of the reduced program. Routine repair and maintenance, we have some repair on the lemon drops that we have at the pool. And then the equipment repair and maintenance, the software that we use for registration, reservation, point of sale and memberships is actually going out of use. They're not going to support it after 2016, I believe. So we're looking at other options. The option that company has proven to be very, very expensive and not really the direction we want to move to. So we're currently looking at some other options. One we've kind of tagged on to and is a software web-based that a lot of other Parks and Recreation departments in the area are using. So that's kind of what these numbers are based on.
Mr. Pepper?
The software, is that going to be compatible with what we've got or what we're planning on getting with you?
We will absolutely, whatever we choose, we will work with IT and finance to make sure everything melds together. Okay. That's absolutely a priority for us.
Okay, tab 38 is park expenses.
Couple of items to highlight here. The equipment parts went up significantly just because in years past, fleet maintenance has always paid for our equipment repair or anything that had to do with rolling stock. So this year, we're actually bringing that into our budget, so we're paying for our own equipment and vehicles to have repaired. The other line item is recreation supplies. This line increased. It was brought to our attention that Dames Park and Sports Park doesn't have adequate recycling cans, and since those parks do flood a lot, they will have to be anchored into the ground, so they're quite expensive. So the increase on that line is due to the recycling cans for sports and Dames.
Questions?
Pepper? Your overtime, can you explain to me how you get overtime that much?
Well, we have the park staff that actually takes care of all the parking lots during the winter months, so we pay the overtime for the snow removal of the parking lots. We also pay the overtime for Heritage and Freedom Fest. Going into 2015, the 4th of July actually falls on a Saturday, so now, rather than in a regular week, I'm paying 2 days. Coming up in 2015, I'm paying 3 days of staffing hours for overtime. So that's the increase.
Okay, thank you.
Tab 39, just real quickly, a percentage of project management is coded to the Recreation Fund for our projects. Fleet maintenance is also coded partially to our fund starting this year. and facility maintenance. And Mike worked with Craig and Bill on the facility maintenance, and there's no significant changes from last year. If you go back to tab 30, what is it, 33, nope, 34, 35, 36, 36, the capital projects and equipment. If you guys want to touch on them, just, or if you have any questions, maybe just. I don't
Any
know if
questions
it's-
before we get into capital? Move on.
Okay, we'll cover capital very quickly.
I just have two capital items. One is the Alligators Creek competition pool, the sandblasting and paint. We haven't sandblasted back down to the concrete in quite a few years, and we usually paint every 2 or 3 years, so we want to get back to the concrete and paint. We've actually held off a couple years on that because of Prop P, or the hopes of passing Prop P in the additions to Alligator Creek, but now we're in a state where we need to get it done. The other item is Alligator Creek slide canopies. Above the slides, currently lifeguards use handheld umbrellas, and we'd like to put a canopy over that to protect people who are in line and the guards from sun.
Bill?
Resealing the parking lots, this is an annual expense that we try to do a parking lot in a park each year. The next one is the field drag, basically replacing another field drag, an older field drag that we have. The Ozzy concession and restrooms, that's one of our largest ticket items. This is basically to finish off the plaza area that was approved in the 2014 budget. The clip signs at Dames and Ozzy, continuing with the concept of the clip signs at each of the park entrances. Fiber to the depot at Alligators Creek, and Alligators Creek. We have 3 vehicles that are slated to be replaced next year. 6-wheel gator. And a Bobcat sweeper for the Bobcat.
And I think you skipped the tennis court.
Because that was Craig's.
Oh.
That was what?
That was Craig's.
Just passing.
I remembered.
Okay. Answer me a question.
Yes, sir.
Or maybe Bonnie can answer me this question. The entry signs for the Dames and Ozzy, why is that not coming out of CLIP instead of out of their fund?
I think the newer ones, I think we put into the separate departments. It's just the initial designs were in CLIP originally. I'm not to say that you can't move them over, but.
I think they should go,
All coming out of CLIP.
should all come out of CLIP.
Okay.
That's my feeling. That mean that
They
gives
won't
them-
argue with you.
We won't argue.
I know you're not going to argue, but my point is, if it's coming for the CLIP project that this council has agreed to, I think the signage ought to come out of the CLIP money.
Now, the signage, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, is when you talk about the clips, the signs, there's also the wayfinding signs, which are...
I understand that. These are the...
Which is which?
These are
These are
the
different.
monument signs that we're trying to incorporate all over the city to make, make sure everything's uniform.
And the CLIP account's general fund, and then this would obviously be rec funds.
So, Mr. Hammond.
Well, I don't care which way they come out of, if they all come out of CLIP, or if the individual rec signs come out of rec. I just want the same for all departments. I know we have some signs in some areas already, or some planned signs already. If those came out of CLIP, then everything needs to come out of CLIP.
Oh,
If they were paid by their own departments, we need to stay consistent, and we just need to go back and see where all the signs are now, and make sure they're consistent.
The ones that we've done so far are Westoff, the street division's done it, water and sewer's done it, and they came out of the respective funds. They did not come out of CLIP.
Well, I disagree with that. I think it should come out of the CLIP program.
And the reason why I don't have a problem with it is because those signs need to be replaced anyway, and they would have come out of the Parks Fund, the water, so the design, I'm okay with it either way, but I can see the reason why we did it the way we did.
Oh, I understand why we did it the way we did it, but I think moving forward, those signs need to come out of the CLIP.
Do you want us to put on the list for Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I will make.
Sure.
I can't make a motion, but.
I'll be happy to.
Huh?
I'd be happy to.
You can make all the motions you want, sir.
Mr. Howell, do you have something? No. Mr. Schwenker?
The Gator that you're proposing, is that diesel, gas, electric?
This one would be a diesel. It's replacing a Pro Gator that we currently have that's a diesel. We have about 4 diesel Gators. All of our other Gators in years past, we've converted to electric Gators, and they're working out great. The lifting capacity and the payload for those are totally different than electric, so we do keep a couple of diesels on hand. This is the first one that we're replacing probably in 6 years. All the other ones have been electric.
Okay, and so, I mean, something like this is used more for, because I know the diesel ones that they were using off and on, like 4th of July parade, stuff like that.
Those are the ones that the police usually takes from us, the 6-wheel.
I mean, those are super bad to have out in, through them crowds like that. I mean, you know, I mean, the electric ones or you know, the diesel ones, I mean, if you're using it for, you know, for working, for the working side of it, but for to use them in the crowds is bad. I mean, it's just, it gags you when they come by, you know.
And you're correct, Councilman. We actually, in the last couple of years, all of our electric Gators stay on the fairgrounds.
Okay.
The gas and the diesel ones that we currently have, the police officers use to patrol the subdivisions.
Stay on the street, okay,
Yes.
good. And then the sweeper that you're looking to do, I've never seen that before. Is that something we have, or is that something you're going to buy to do for parking lots, or what's that for?
Yeah, it's to help with the flooding at Dames and Sports Park. Currently, we're using fire hoses and push brooms, and if available, the street department will lend us theirs, or we rent water trucks. To have our own sweeper is just a cost savings to clean up all the sludge off the roadways throughout the parks.
Okay.
Mr. Pepper, do you have a question?
Well, I had the question about Westhoff tennis courts.
You and me both. My question is, it's a 2-court? 3 courts? Still, $500,000?
I thought we were getting a grant for that.
$75,000.
We have $75,000 towards that grant.
You just need to explain why it's $500,000. That's, to me, that's a lot of money for.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we just had ours in Hutchings Farm totally redone for $32,000.
How many courts?
It's 1 court, so you multiply that by 3.
Councilman Pepper, did they just resurface it, or did they completely tear it out? This is a complete tear out.
They tore the entire top of it off and then totally put down a whole new, and it's about yay so thick.
Yeah, well, this one has had that done several times, and so we're having to literally take this one out.
Well, this is what they've done is they put a different type of material on there than the old, quote, tennis courts used to have. It costs us more, but it sure
Well, I
is
think
nice.
and if you read, they're putting the newer stuff.
Post-tension.
Post-tension concrete is kind of the new trend for tennis courts, and it is a little more expensive to put in initially, but it's supposed to last. A normal tennis court, an asphalt one, will last you maybe 15 years. They're telling us the post-tension will last 30. So you're getting twice as long out of it. These, you know, honestly, the tennis courts have been neglected for quite a few years. I know when you drive by them, they don't look bad. You need to get out and walk on them. These pictures don't even do them justice.
They do, but
I mean, we can look at options. I can tell you that we might jeopardize the grant if we make too many changes right now.
I don't want to jeopardize the grant. I mean, $500,000, that's, to me, is a lot. So we have to you're gonna have to tear the fences down and.
Right, and a lot of that we'll do in-house, as much of it as we can, but until we get it designed and bid out, you know, that's an estimation from Planning Design Studio, who's done a lot of work with us. It could be less, and there may be more we can do in-house, but until we get it designed, I don't I don't know.
Mr. Swanker.
I agree with you, Mayor, and the thing is, if we lost the grant and we did it for $250,000,
Exactly. I'll give it up.
we're still, that's double what Councilman Pepper's saying, so, I mean,
And I tell you, I'd like to keep it in the budget. I just think, we can do
We can look at options.
look at the options to see, if there's any way that the $500,000 to, redo the tennis courts.
Solar LED lighting too on there instead of the...
Well, that's what I was going to
Debbie.
bring up, is the lighting. For the $500,000, that includes the lighting.
That includes the lighting.
But your line in here says that the lights were damaged and removed. I mean, I hate to see us put a ton of money into lighting over there and just to have them be torn up again. I mean,
Well, they
how
were
much would we
damaged from a
save?
windstorm.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
it wasn't
Not
vandalism.
vandalism.
It was,
Would we save very much by not putting lighting and just make it daytime courts?
Times the park closed anyway.
Well, the only problem is in the evening, during the summertime, they get used.
It doesn't get dark till 9 o'clock. I play tennis up at Fort Zumwalt West. The boys and I will go up there, and we'll play in the evening. It doesn't get dark till 8:30, 9 o'clock. So that's late, you may be able to save some money just by not putting the lights in. Have you broke it down to see what it would be without?
we just have an estimate, and unfortunately, I don't think I grabbed that when I walked out of the office.
Well, if you can just
But
I think
look
what
at
we're doing is
options,
look at
and
the options.
We hear your concerns, and we'll do what we can to get that down
Okay.
as low as we can.
Mr. Henman.
Thank you. Our park board did meet out at this park. Tuesday, we went out there, and I had a chance to take a look at them, and they are in horrible shape. Seeing that these are the only tennis courts that the city has control of, I think it's pretty necessary to try to keep these. But I agree, I think that cost is high, and I think Cindy will do her best to try to bring that down and come back with a reasonable offer to get those back to where they are usable again and available for our citizens to use from a city standpoint.
Mr. Howe?
Thank you, Mayor. Don't our parks close a half hour after dark anyway or something?
Not when they have lights in them. So, I mean, they're all, like Fort Zumwalt has no street lights or anything, so yes, it closes at dusk. Westhoff has parking lot lights, the ball field lights, those are all on, so it has nighttime use, so they close at 11.
Okay, thank you.
Jeffrey?
And I know the mayor said he don't have a problem keeping it in the budget, but if this was kept in the budget at $500,000 and you did your due diligence and it came back and it was $498, would it still come back to this council to be voted on?
You'd have to
Even
award
though
a
it's in the
bid.
budget, it would still come back
You
to
have to
us.
award the bid.
Yeah. Anything over 75,000, we bring back to you.
That, I would be okay with that.
And I would, and I really like to see if we can cut it down, that way you can put more.
In our
You
reserve.
cut it in half, that means you get another $250,000, you can.
We
Then
will
we could
see
go
what
to
we
the
can do.
70-30 split.
No, this is recreation. This isn't parks. This is recreation.
Moving right along.
80-20.
Okay.
Jeffrey, intergovernmental transfer.
Any other questions on the rec fund? Seeing none.
Okay.
Parks.
Well, I think you went through parks already.
Oh.
We're done.
You done?
Well, no, we're going to tab 41, which is the Vinod Spirit Center. First of all, thank you to those that were able to make it to the 10th anniversary gala last Sunday. It's hard to believe the facility's been open 10 years. We had a lot of accolades that night on the condition of the facility and how clean it is, and I heard it several times that, it's as clean it was as clean Sunday night as it was the day we opened. So that goes to Craig and his staff. They do a tremendous job down there. When that facility was opened, the original business plan did not call for that facility to cover the capital expenses in that facility. It was designed to cover the operating expense. They have been able to cover the capital expense for the last 10 years to the tune of a little over $400,000. However, with the aging facility, we are starting to have more maintenance issues, and so we need to come up with an alternative fund to help with those future capital projects that are going to be coming. So staff's recommendation is that that subsidy would come from the Recreation Fund. We currently put 1% of the sales tax as a transfer into the RSC from the Recreation Fund, and this year we are putting an additional $145,000 towards there, and this year it's actually needing to be done just to keep that fund balance in the positive. As we go forward, we would like to continue probably close to that amount, but I'm not going to say a set amount because we're still working with CTS and facility maintenance to get a better handle on all of the maintenance items that are going to be coming up over the next 5 to 10 years. But when we get a better handle on that, we'll include that in our yearly planning. Since the Recreation Fund is overseen by the Parks and Recreation Board, the discussions on the capital for the RSC would also go to them so that they have input, as that would be coming to you in our 5-year capital plan from the Recreation Fund going forward. Obviously, staff is looking at ways that we can increase revenues and decrease expenses. That's something we do all the time. In the budget that you have, we are actually recommending a 2% increase in memberships across the board, and then in addition, we have 2 membership packages right now. You can get a regular pass, or you can get the Plus Pass. The Plus Pass you have to commit for a year, but it includes the ability to attend several of our core or our basic aerobic type classes free. We're actually going to, right now they're the same price, and we're going to separate them, and that Plus Pass is going to be increased 10% to provide a differentiation between the two. We don't foresee there being a lot of impact. It's about a 50-50 split right now on those people that have the regular pass and those that have the Plus Pass. We figure that'll probably stay pretty close to that. In addition, and this is not reflected in this budget, we would recommend increase in daily admissions $1 across the board, and for a family it would be $3 because it's $15 for a family. And also our gym court rental, we would recommend increasing that $5 for the half-hour rental. Those 2 items could increase revenue projections another $24,000 for next year. We're also going to, I know we've mentioned Silver Sneakers a couple times, which is, it's a great program, and a lot of senior adults sign up for it. The problem is you don't get anything for it unless they come to the facility. So we're working on some ways to increase marketing and incentives, things to drive the seniors that are members of Silver Sneakers into the facility so that we do get reimbursed for them being members. Right now we have 651 members, but we don't see them all. And if we could get them all to come in a couple times a week, that would greatly help our revenues. In addition, staff is looking at the operation of the facility. Are there hours maybe we can not open the pool till a half hour later, or we're looking at things like that as well to see how we can decrease expenses. And with that, I can let Craig start talking about revenues, or if we want to.
Well, I just have a couple questions.
Okay.
You're saying not open the pool up for a half hour before, you open at 5?
We open at 3:30. So
3:30, and you open the pool up at 4?
Right, that's correct.
You open up at now at 4?
Right now, we open up at 3:30.
We would push it back.
So we
Anybody
push it
use it
back
at
to
3:30 in the morning?
I'm sorry?
How many folks use it at 3:30 in the morning?
afternoon.
Oh, this is the
Sorry.
afternoon, I'm
Oh.
sorry. We open at 5:15 in the morning, so yes, it's that afternoon. And actually, we do building counts on the half hour every hour, so looking back on our numbers, and with some changes with the Zumwalt School District, some of their elementary schools and middle schools ending their day a little bit later, that 3:30 to 4 really shows kind of a lesser attendance anyway. So we think that that's probably minimal reaction, something we should do anyway, so.
Okay. And your daily admission of an extra $1 and the $5 for half hour? You said it's not in the budget?
It's not in your revenue projections right now. These are things that we've discussed and came up with since this was all submitted. The increase in memberships is reflected in this.
Are you requesting for it to go, the daily admissions to go up an hour and the $5?
Yes.
That's what you're requesting?
That's what we're recommending.
Okay. Mr. Pepper?
A quick question. What are we doing about bringing in non-residents, outside of O'Fallon, marketing the center?
We use quite a few different ways of marketing. We do try to target some of the areas that we feel we're getting people, or that we're not getting people from. The dailies are a little bit hard because we don't actually track those. It's a point of sale. They give us money, they use the facility, so we really don't have any information on them. We've thought about doing that, but we felt that would be, when people come in, they just want to pay their money, they go on. They don't want to fill out a questionnaire or anything like that. As far as memberships are concerned, we can pretty much log every member, so we know what areas that we're drawing from and what areas we're not. We actually made the choice, I don't know if I should bring this up, we made the choice of not being in the O'Fallon parade this year because we felt we were reaching that area of O'Fallon, and we were in the Cottleville parade because for some strange reason we're not drawing at all from Cottleville. So just we have a meeting every other week on marketing. We all kick around these ideas and try to focus on what we're missing. So it's just a work in progress. We're constantly trying to
Think about what kind of maybe incentive, like a first-year incentive to get them in.
Well, we do a 10% off, and that's usually just 2 times a year. Other than that, we don't do a lot of incentives as far as
Free weekends, too.
We do a free week. We give some free passes away for different things. When we get a ton of requests for gift bags and that sort of thing. We actually focus on whether we're drawn from that area or not before we decide to accept that, as a donation. So we don't do any incentives. I kind of feel like we're what they're paying for is a pretty good dollar. So I'd hate to cut that any thinner.
Let's talk about what you call the lost leader, bringing somebody in the door, and then you put the hook in.
Right. I mean, we work pretty hard. We do a huge event that we just got finished with in September. I don't know if anybody saw any pictures of it, but we had a ton of people there, and we do that every year. And we do pull some memberships from that. We'll try anything if we think it'll work.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Howe.
Thank you, Mayor. I seen that the membership with the plus packages and all that. I mean, I kind of see what you're trying to do. There's obviously some activities that probably most people would like. I had a couple people call me and ask me, bottom line, how much is a membership? Mm-hmm. And then I got the book open because I didn't know off the top of my head, and I'm looking, and it's not that it's really, I'm not going to say it's totally confusing, but I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're doing things like that, because I noticed the different options for the different, and I think it does confuse people.
Right.
I think they want to say, okay, I want to join. They call the one place, and they'll call this place, and this place, and this place, and and they just want to, I mean, I think if you start giving them too many options, I think that confuses them too much, and that might lean them towards somebody else. It's just my opinion.
No, I don't disagree with you, and I think there's a lot of people who I respect and know what they're talking about who would agree with you as well. I think it's been told to me the fewer price points, the better. Unfortunately, I know there was a time in our past where non-residents paid the same as residents. I think as a resident myself and other residents feel that's not fair, and I can agree with that point. But when it comes down to it, we really have, we try to do the family, the adult, the child, the senior. A lot of people do senior couples, they do grandparent prices, they do a lot of different price points, and I think that is very confusing. I'm not denying that ours isn't confusing. I'm struggling with where I could cut.
I know, and I know that's hard. I think people make the decision that they're going to join, period, and then they'll make their 3 or 4 or 5 calls and go, what do you offer? And
Right.
you guys all know what everybody else offers and the whole deal, and then they go, okay, this is the cheapest, and then that's what I'm going with. You know, I by no means I'm telling you how to run your business. I just know from the few people that I have called, said, well, why are they doing this, and what's this, and what's it, you know, so, anyway.
No, I certainly understand.
Best of luck.
Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. Can you go over the regular pass and the plus pass one more time and then tell me what your plan, what you guys are wanting to do with it?
Do you want me to do that?
Sure.
Let me back up just a little bit. And I don't have the exact date, I apologize, but around 2010 or so, we felt like people were kind of renting our space. They would get a membership. The membership is absolutely expected to be a long-term membership, and then we allow them to get out of it, which is similar to other facilities in the area, with a 30-day notice. So people could get a membership for a couple months, and then they're gone. So to kind of respond to that without trying to lose any revenue, what we did is we said, if you stayed there for a year, we'll give you basic land aerobics for free. So that's what kind of started the Plus Pass. Wasn't any more dollars, it was just basically an offer to use land aerobics for free. Now we're to the point where I think we've got 50% of the memberships are Plus Passes, and right now our aerobic revenue stream has fallen drastically. So people are taking advantage of it. That's great. But at this point, I think we feel like we need to do an upsell for that bonus.
So you got the regular pass, and they can, after 2 months, say, I'm done, and they walk away. The plus pass, they're saying, I'm going to be here for a year. So I get free aerobics. We're going to raise the price on the people who say, I'm going to be here for a year, higher than we are the guy who's going to be here a month or two and just move on. That sounds backwards.
So, and I understand what you're saying. You're absolutely right. But the alternative to that is to say, you're going to sign a contract to use this facility for a year, and I'm not letting you out.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody, we can certainly do that. There's a lot of facilities out there.
That's what the Plus Pass is doing right now, isn't it?
It is, but not everybody has a Plus Pass. That doesn't work for 50% of the members.
I understand that. But if you raise the price a little bit higher on the regular pass and not so much higher on the Plus Pass, then people are only here for a couple months, might be here for 12 months. Now your revenues just went up by 10 months. I think by charging more to the people who say I'm going to be here for a year is completely backwards. You got people committed to the Renard Spirit Center, so we're going to ding them in the pocket. And the people who aren't committed to Renard Spirit Center, you get a pass. That's just totally backwards to me.
Debbie?
Well, to kind of jump on what you're saying, but they're getting free classes in exchange. If they're not in the Plus Pass,
right,
they have to pay for those extra classes.
That's correct.
So they're getting the advantage of not having to pay for those classes.
Right. But we're getting the advantage of having for 12 months and not 2.
Yeah, but I have something else I want to say too.
She's not arguing.
I'm not arguing. I don't argue. You said we're not reaching the Cottleville. How are our prices comparable to the Rexplex?
We are more expensive than the Recplex.
So do you think maybe Cottleville is maybe going towards that direction? Or some of the other areas that we're not drawing from? I mean,
They very well could be. They just of course opened a Gold's Gym. I didn't say just, it was, 2 years ago off of 94. I'm sure that's, a hit on that. I guess when we look at where our memberships are, there is an obvious miss in Cottleville. I don't know. I would guess that they're probably either going to the Recplex or to Gold's. We were hoping that if we had a little more presence in that area, some of our other marketing that we're doing, we're trying to push a little more toward Cottleville. We've been doing it for about a year, and to be honest, I haven't looked to see where we're at. We're hoping it's,
and you have the Y across the street too. That doesn't help any.
No, ma'am, that does not help.
But we need to see what we can do. I guess there's no way of making our prices more comparable to the Rexplex. I don't know what their prices are, but.
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but they're, I wouldn't say they're, well, they're definitely cheaper.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Feeney?
Tell me where we're in respect to the Y. Are we higher, low?
We are cheaper than the Y.
And for some reason, all my senior friends seem like they want to go to the Y, and I haven't figured out why, but maybe I will one of these days.
Why, no pun intended.
Free coffee.
Okay.
We
Mr.
offer
Schwenker?
free coffee, too.
Perhaps, maybe, I don't know.
I think that's basically the only, I mean, one we should look at is the Y, and we are cheaper than the Y. We're far and above better than the Rexplex, so we can charge more because our facility is much nicer. I know, just to piggyback on Councilman Hammond, and Councilman Howell started it, we powwowed about this a couple days ago for about an hour. It is confusing, and I would love to see us drop all that stuff of the plus, and I know your intentions of what you were trying to do when it started, but you're right, now it's swallowed us up, and now we're backwards in it. It's hurt us in other ways, you know, by giving the stuff away for, now it's hurt us, now it's flipped on us. Good intentions to start, now it's not working. So we need to simplify it and go back, like Councilman Hammond said, we need to go back and we're punishing the people that are there. And we've went backwards by the classes dropping because we're giving stuff away for free for an incentive. I understand the intent,
Right.
but now it's reversed on us.
Yeah, no, our simple thought process with that was that, you know, they're getting it for free, they'd certainly still pay, and I don't know off the top of my head, but it's basically for a family membership, you would be paying, I apologize, $55 more a year to have all those classes. One class will cost you $48.
Yeah, it's not a significant increase.
So it's not a significant increase. And I think people who see the value in that, and my family is one of them, I don't take the classes, but my daughter does. But anyway, they would still see that would be I think they would still see that as a value even at $55 increase. As far as making it simpler, I would be open to any kind of suggestion. Some of these price points, I don't know how you would not have, but I would certainly be open to any suggestions. You know, we're willing to look at anything.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to see you guys powwow. I mean, that's you guys' job. I'd like to see you powwow. I know you've done it in the past and come up with very good solutions, you know, and it's always been moving forward. But I would have to agree with Councilman Howell and Hammond on this. We need to simplify it a little bit better.
Okay.
You know, and as far as the Rexplex, again, we're far above that. The only people we have to worry about is the Y.
Mr. Pepper, do you have a question?
No, sir.
I thought you had your hand up.
I did, but it got answered.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay. Tab 42 is the facility maintenance part of the RSC. Again, Mike has worked with Craig on that, and there are really no significant increases there. 43 is the expenses for the RSC, and I'll let Craig touch on a few.
Yeah, I just would really like to point out the charges for contract services, and that's, again, where the software will be. That'll change. The software that we have will be used both for recreation fund and, or for the recreation fund and for the RSC. So, other than that, I think we're along the lines that we've been at.
Question? Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. Your class instructors, your kickboxing, aerobics, whatever you guys got going on there, are they employees or are they contracted to teach a class with the amount per student, per person in their
They're
class?
employees.
They're part-time.
They used to be contract, and we moved away from that about 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, so they full-time employees, or they part-time employees?
They're
They full-time
part-time
employees that also teach classes, or are they part-time employees that just teach classes?
We have a couple full-time employees that actually do some classes. That's not really where we want to be.
Right.
So all the instructors are part-time employees.
All the instructors are?
Correct.
Okay.
That was due to the IRS.
Yes. The IRS did a determination that they needed to be part-time employees, not contracted employees.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Schwenker?
Just on the wages, I guess that reflects because of what we're doing of moving things around, charging the departments, how we charge them the 18.75% increase. Or am I looking at the wrong thing?
With tab you on?
RSC fund portion, tab 42.
42 or 43?
42.
That's facilities maintenance.
Oh, okay.
And yes, that has to do with how
That's-
we're moving around. We're getting
Because
part
we're
of.
shifting, putting it in the right departments.
Yeah, and how much time facilities is spending over at the RSC.
Everybody's okay with that?
Let's move on to tab 44. No, they did a time study.
They
so-
did a time study, and Vicki's reviewed it and feels very comfortable with the results.
Okay. Any other questions for RSC fund? Public venue.
Public venue is the stadium. You guys know what the lease is. The lease is $50,000. There's really no significant changes there. Tab 45 is the operating. Bill, did you notice, are there any significant changes here?
Tab 44 is operating?
Nope, tab 45.
Tom.
Oh, how did I get, sorry, I turned 2, I guess.
No, there's not any significant changes in that budget for the operating at the stadium. There is 2 capital requests, though, for the stadium, which is the roof repairs. Having a lot of issues with the roof out there this year. And the second one is the chain link fence. This is to secure the rest of the area behind the big dog wall where the locker rooms and the batting cages are. That area is not secure just because of the way the stadium was designed and the way the locker rooms were put in after the fact.
Questions on public venue?
Real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Who said that? Mr. Pepper?
$34,000 proposed for contract services.
We charge a portion of the landscape division who maintains the exterior of the stadium as well as all the landscaping and flower beds gets charged back to the public venue fund at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any other questions on public venue? Mr. Henman?
How high is this fence you're going to be putting in?
I believe it's 10 foot.
10 foot, okay.
Any other questions for public venue? Thank you.
Tom Drabell.
Drabell.
You can stay up here if you want.
Hello. Tab 45 is the PR portion of the communications budget. Really just highlight 2 things. You'll see a significant increase in charges for contract services. That entire increase is directly related to our intention to contract for a reverse 911 system for next year, looking at about $28,000 for an annual fee for that project. We worked with the police department in putting it together, and we just made a mutual decision to put it under the PR department because as our intention would be in the future, as we get the system in and expand on it, eventually we could let other departments use it as well. So by having it under the PR department, it kind of takes it out of the police department budget. The other change, there is an increase in the training and travel budget, and that is so that I can attend a Public Relations Society of America conference next year. Also, hopefully, as part of that, get my certification as a accredited PR professional. That's it.
Questions on public relations?
You get the Silver Tongue Award, is that what it is?
That's right. That's exactly what it is.
Questions on PR? Mr. Schwenker?
I guess I don't know if I agree with the contracted services going under your portion on the reverse 911. I mean, we may expand in the future, but I would think that would go under the police budget.
Well, I think what it is it's also actually in case of emergency that streets can use it. Any department will be able to use.
Right.
Just not police.
But will they be able to use that as soon as it's in, or is that something down the road?
Our intention would be during next year. I'm not going to say on day one that every department's going to be able to use it, but as the year goes on, yes, our intention would be that every department
so
would use it.
it'll be in use for everybody within the year.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
I was thinking you were down the road.
Oh, no, sorry about that. Yeah, no, definitely throughout the year next year.
Okay.
No, and I've worked with them before, and once they're installed, you can use them all right away. It's just who gets trained. And Tom, we figured, would be a perfect person to get trained. And then everybody could call him.
Okay.
I need a lot of training.
Okay. Any other questions on public relations? Ken, you're up.
Thank you, sir. So next year, we're going to see a 5% reduction in our overall operating items. We do have a couple items that are going up that are noticeable. One of ours is charges for contract services as well. We're seeing a trend where some of the software that we use is going to subscription, so where you got to pay a monthly subscription for a piece of software where we used to be able to buy it and use it. And we're just saying that's the only option available for a couple of ours, so that's where that money comes in, a little bit less than $1,000. The other item that's up too is our training. We don't get a lot of training opportunities for our specialty here locally, and when they do come through, they're typically a little bit more expensive. Fortunately, we can do a lot of webinars and online things, but locally when they come, they're typically more expensive. So those are the two items that are actually increased this year. And I can take any questions on the rest of this.
Any capital?
I have one item for capital. Asking you to consider allowing us to upgrade our automation system, which is our video file servers and our video on demand and those type systems. Right now, we're operating on Server 2003 and XP, which XP is not supported right now. Server 2003 won't be supported after the first of the year. So, I mean, we don't want to be vulnerable to an attack. So, if someone comes up with a virus out there and it attacks us, Microsoft isn't going to do anything. And I know internally, IT is replacing all machines that are XP and Server 2003. So, we're asking to do that. It's, it would be a gamble if we decided to, not do that.
Mr. Howell, do you have a question, sir?
No, I do have one question, and I'm looking. I apologize. What is your full-time and part-time personnel?
5 counting myself full-time, and currently we have 1 part-time, and we had 2 earlier, but 1 just left for a different job.
We're working to replace that person.
Right, we have an opening for that.
Okay.
We have a pool of hours for our part-time people, so we can have really as many part-time people as we want.
Okay, and the only reason I'm asking, because I as busy as you ladies and gentlemen are, I mean, I just don't know why you don't have, why everybody's not full-time. I thought with just the 2. But if you've got something worked out, I mean, that's what I was really thinking, that you were going to have something to go full-time with everybody, but, because I know the hours you're putting in.
Yeah, we found that the part-time mix really fills that need, so we try to use that. A lot of it depends on who we have as a part-timer as well, their availability.
Right.
That's why if we have one that's available a lot, we just use the one. Because mainly it's going to be the nights and the weekend type stuff.
Right.
But no, we found that the part-time works better for us.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to tell you how to run your shop. If that's what works, that's what works. That's fine.
Mr. Pepper?
I guess 2 things. The one that just left, did we lose any talent in that?
Yes, we did, but he took a great opportunity at St. Peter's, one where he was going to have a little more control over his schedule, also part-time, but a little more control over his schedule. So
Seems a shame.
it is a shame, but you expect that with part-timers, unfortunately. But we've always had great part-timers come through. So
what I'm trying to say is, when you see somebody with a major talent, why don't you glom onto them and hang on to them, because that's what's needed. And
Well, in a perfect world, I would
beg, borrow, and steal to get them in there.
In a perfect
however.
world, I would love to do that, but we have to look at what's best for the department as a whole, and the flexibility given to us with the part-timers is far better for the department structure. And as much as I might like one individual, or Ken might like one individual and think they're a great person and a great talent, we have to do what's best for the department, and what's best for the department is to have the flexibility of the part-timers.
Probably going to have to agree to disagree, but you're running the department.
Well,
anyway.
We're very fortunate that almost every part-timer we brought in's had a lot of talent, and with Lindenwood right down the street, we're able to get a lot of talent from Lindenwood because they have possibly the best television production department in the state. They're fantastic. So they got better equipment than Channel 5 and Channel 4 does, and so their guys are really good.
But the other thing, just a comment on Mr. Snow, totally agree with you on the software. You're flirting with death with those things right now because it's out there, and I think the rest of the world is going to a minimum of 2010 and 2013. It's needed bad.
Okay. Anything else on communications?
Kudos to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Jesse, you're up.
While Jessie comes up, I'll just give you a little background. You may notice in her budget, there is the addition of a shared employee that actually started with a request from us for a part-time position to support Jessie. Working with Bonnie and Lenore, based on your instructions, we recognize that that was not an intelligent move at this year. However, thanks to Lenore and Bonnie's creativity, we were able to work out an agreement where we'll be able to share one of the front desk employees for several hours during the week and actually pull that portion of the salary out of the general fund and pay for it with a dedicated CDBG funds that will allow us to support that. So we're actually going to be able to help the general fund and also get the support we need. So it worked out for everybody. With that, I'll turn it over to Jessie.
All right.
You got about 2 minutes.
Okay, fine by me. I'm looking at my narrative sheet just based on the way I do my HUD stuff. This is a lot easier for me to explain to you guys. If you look at the programs that we're offering, we're not changing anything. We're going to offer the exact same programs as we have the last couple years. We will put in the disabled transportation that you guys suggested for the 2014 budget. We're again putting that in for 2015. The only other thing that I would like to note is you guys have received an email about the changes that we're proposing to do to the senior center to make it ADA compliant. If you note that we are putting towards that again in 2015 with CDBG funding, so we are going to continue to support that project. Any questions?
Questions on the community about CDGB? Rick, do you have something?
No. How do you question it?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
She does a good job. What can you say?
It's a pleasure. You have municipal court, finance, debt service, administration, and legal. What's the pleasure?
What are you thinking on time,
It's
Bob?
going to be real fast.
Quick.
I think if anything, Dad will take the longest, but the rest of it, Jeff's going to be quick, I'm going to be quick, Vicky's going to be quick, so.
Municipal court. Shoot, Mr. Chappell.
There's not a whole lot of changes. You'll see a few changes in what we acknowledged this year is with our new full-time warrant clerk that we added. We forgot to bring over some of his materials that were previously budgeted in police department, such as the large amount of paper he uses and folders and shredder. So they decreased it in their budget, and that's where our increases are on our budget. So they absorbed it this year for their operating because they had already had it in their budget, but it's reflected in the 15 budget properly into ours. So that's where you'll see some changes and I did make sure that they were aware that I added it, and they did follow up and make sure it was cut out of PD.
Okay.
So.
Questions on municipal court? Finance.
I'm going to touch upon two items. The first one is office supplies. You're going to see a $1,500 increase in that. We're purchasing fixed asset tags for that dollar amount this year. So that's why you see that increase. And in professional fees, we have a $5,000 increase. This is an every other year expense. We have to have an actuary study based on one of our GASB pronouncement for post-employment benefits that we have to record in our financial statements, and it's required that we do that every 2 years. And then I'm going to touch really quickly upon the capital items that we have. The debt service for City Hall gets put into my budget. We are in 2016. That will be paid in full. The idea at this point is, we're hoping that savings we'll be able to use. It'll be a large majority of that will go towards operations of a justice facility. So that's what the future plans are at this point. And the other item I have is a timekeeping system. This is to purchase a timekeeping system. Currently, we have 2 different timekeeping systems, and they have some limitations to them. We have our time entry through the Encode software, and we have Kronos. Kronos is outdated, and we're getting to a point where we're going to have to upgrade that anyway in order for them to continue to support it. Our recommendation is to go out for bid and bid on one timekeeping system citywide. Everybody would clock in. Right now, only those on Kronos clocks in. I think it's going to be much more efficient. We're going to work with the departments to make sure that we have more capabilities than what we have now. We've talked to some other municipalities that are very happy with their timekeeping system, so we have a couple that are on our radar that we'd like to look at, but this would be an item that would be bid out.
Questions on finance?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Pepper?
Just a clarification. How come local phone and fax services for municipal complex is under you and not under facilities?
That is a bill that I monitor. When it comes in, I actually code off on that, and I take a look at the bill just to make sure that there's nothing that looks unusual or unreasonable. It's been quite a while since I've had to contact employees, but in the past I have had to contact employees and let them know your calls home are long-distance calls. So you either need to make them on your personal phone or you're going to have to reimburse the city.
Okay, I had to get through, okay, this is general revenue,
Yeah, it's
okay.
just
And you're just
this
the controlling.
facility.
You're just controlling.
That's why I code it, because I review
Gotcha.
it as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for finance? Debt service.
Debt service, this is the fund where the general obligation bonds are recorded. Currently, we have 2 that we're paying on. The payoff dates are 2018 and 2020. The 2005 is currently paying for the parks improvements that we did back in 2000, 2001 for RSC and Alligators Creek. And the 2007 GO refunding is paying for the senior center and some improvements that we made to several street projects.
Questions? Mr. Hammond?
Thank you. This is probably for Vicki and for Bonnie, but we got so many different bonds that are running, getting ready to expire, or I guess mature, whatever you want to call it, in the next 10 years. We got quite a few of them. Can we get a list of those in one spot? Because like each department says, like they have one, a bunch of departments have theirs here and theirs here, and what that's going to mean to those individual funds in the next 5-10 years. And then we got some street, I think, had some in 17.
Water, sewer.
Water, sewer has some coming, stuff like that. So we see when those are expiring, or whatever you want to call it, and what those are going to funnel back into those funds at those times. No hurry on that. It has nothing to do with what I'm looking through for this budget. Just if we can get it for, soon, before the end of the year maybe, just so we can keep track of what's coming our way.
Yeah, I can compile that list. I know in each of the funds I have put on there the dates that they mature.
Right.
Typically what happens over time is the principal payments increase as the interest payments decrease, so we have even debt service payments each year. But I can certainly compile it into a list so it'll be a lot easier to look at.
Yeah, just because they're scattered throughout the book, we can have them in one form, that'd be great.
Yeah, and right behind the debt service tab, I did add a form, and this is just a form for this year, just a summary of the debt of what's being paid off. I know that's been asked for in the past, so I just went ahead and included it under this tab.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Finance. Great job.
Tab
Bonnie.
6, back to 16, administration. The big thing here is Team O'Fallon is where the Six Sigma Lean government is. It is a lot higher. I went out for requests for proposals, received 2 back. I mean, it's just not cheap to do training for that. We did do a 2-day boot camp that I think was very well received for those who went, but if we want to continue, I put in an additional funding for that. The only capital item is right outside these walls. There's a council board listing all council members. There's also a commission board. They are full. Right now, I didn't put in to replace or add tabs for both of them. I just put in for the council board, but they are going to need upgrades, and so.
Okay. I would like to have somebody on Thursday make this motion. I mean, for the tab board, you know, what Bonnie's put in there is the 19,000
right.
plus for the elected official side of it. Yeah, well, because they have to add the board and because it's full. It's actually for the volunteers, folks, to update that is only $8,333. To me, I'd rather see the volunteer board get updated instead of the elected officials. I think next year, if we have the money, then we can put that money towards filling out the elected official side, but let's get the volunteer updated. I mean, I know we have the historical commission. I mean, to get your name up on the board, you got to have 5 years. And I just think we should have that updated for the volunteers rather than the elected side. So on Thursday, I'd like to have somebody make that to change it. There you go, sir. Any other questions on administration?
Just
Mr. Pepper.
Support of Bonnie. That training is an absolute necessity if this city is going to move forward. Would you not agree?
Oh, I thought it was, actually it was kind of funny because not funny, but afterwards it was kind of a challenge, and a lot of people already did some lean government projects. We've got about 12 of them prioritized that we're all going to work on, so everybody got pretty psyched to do it, but you need more. We need more training.
Okay.
And then it becomes train the trainer.
Right.
Any other things on administration?
Go 17.
Legal.
Legal, no changes. Both attorneys said that we could keep it the same, and, you know, the personnel, 90% of that, I think you probably all know what that's for, and if we can get a police memorandum of agreement, 90% of that goes away, so.
Okay. Anything else? Bonnie, what I would like is probably on Friday is to send the elected officials the questions or decisions that we're going to have to make on Wednesday.
So tomorrow?
I guess tomorrow is Friday, isn't it?
We could get it by Monday.
Monday's fine. Monday's fine.
We will try for tomorrow.
No, Monday's fine.
Monday or
And
Tuesday.
all I want to do is make sure, and if there's something else that somebody else wants to see, please let Bonnie know that, and Vicki.
Yeah, please
team,
let us know.
just let us know.
ASAP to have, because it's so much easier to have a master list.
Right.
And it helps Pam with voting.
So, okay.
What was that last part?
If you have anything else after Bonnie sends it out on Monday, if you want to see something else changed in the budget, to let Bonnie know. And we're done.
We can all wear Kansas City jerseys at the next meeting.
Yep.
It's over, we lost
Walk off
3-6.
6-3.
Just when you were making that up.
3-6.
Ishikawa hit a home run.
And that's why I didn't hear what he said.
Motion adjourned, Hammond.
Second, Pepper.
Motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Pepper. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So Ishikawa hit a home run.